another live stream from Hobart, Tasmania. Good to see everyone. Now let me just sort out because my screen's a bit been reconfigured for whatever reason. Hold on. Oop. Go back to that. I just have to try and see. Let me just open up another window. Some reason everything got reconfigured. I don't know why, which is just a bit annoying. So let me see if I can work it out. Because I can't actually bring anything on the actual screen for whatever reason. It's just not sure what's happening. So this is the third time I've used this stream service because we, as you know, with StreamYard, I ran out of hours to be able to utilize that. So I'm just trying to fiddle around with this one currently, so try and work out what the hell is happening. So I have to open up YouTube to actually see what's actually coming through. That's not, why isn't that menu coming through? Okay. It's all set. Okay. G'day, Bart. Good to see you, mate.
Hello, how are you?
Just trying to fiddle around with this damn thing because I've missed.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Harry, tell me, if I do this, can you hear what's happening?
What's that?
Did you hear anything?
Yeah, I can hear something. Yep.
Let me try that again. No?
I'm not sure. I don't. Hold on.
Okay.
Now, are you trying to actually share some audio? Are you?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether it's reading my microphone or whether it's reading my...
It's probably maybe reading your webcam because mine actually reverted to my laptop webcam. It just reset everything.
Yeah, the restream doesn't seem to be able to read the OBS setup. It can't read all the clever audio stuff. Clearly, it's a bit gay.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty much. It can't do a lot of that sort of. I've just ran out of StreamYard hours. So this is the last. It's the 5th week, Sunday, and I've got no other option but to use this. It's the 3rd time I'm actually using Restream. Yeah, it's just a bit on the sort of pathetic sort of way that it actually.
Unfortunately, what that means is that this young man is without a voice today. He's going to have to.
Oh, damn!
Oh well, shit happens.
Well, next time.
Yeah,
I did invite him. But unfortunately, you can't use his technology. Sorry, Ted.
Yep. So, Robin, no, you don't need carbs to play rugby. Not at all. Not what you do, but they are stored in your muscles and they are produced by your body by a process called gluconeogenesis from non-carbohydrate sources. For example, lactate. For example, glycerol backbones. That kind of thing. You don't need 1 gram of carbohydrate in your diet ever. Not 1 gram, whether you play rugby or not.
Now, so let me just hit that. That'll actually bring us in. Yep, that's a bit better.
So no carbs needed to play rugby. Hello, Lukey.
Yeah, it's sort of that we live in a world where our ancestors, like and we look at a whole lot of tribal populations. Just think of you sometimes have to step back, guys, from the general. We are flooded by something like well over 90% of epidemiological studies, which is just junk. We know that. We sometimes have to sort of step back from all this nonsense where we're flooded throughout our whole world, and we have to say to ourselves, let's just think, logically about this sort of thing. You look at the N15 data, which goes back, comparing the 14 and 15 isotope, telling you whether it's from plant or whether it's coming from an animal, and you're comparing those and balancing those out. You're looking at that data. That's a slam dunk for me. But beyond that, we look at populations like, the Inuit in the most harshest environment on this planet, literally going for miles trying to find out, to hunt down animals in extreme conditions with no carbs whatsoever. And then we see the Maasai, on an animal-based diet, doing, literally taking on lions and stuff like that. And then we still have this complete disconnect where we think that carbs, are required. And then we look at populations, archaeologists, ask any archaeologist, go to any major archaeologist that has got a YouTube and ask them one simple question. How do you differentiate a tribal society on a traditional animal-based diet from some group of people that actually have taken up agriculture? And they will tell you. They notice on the cranium, they notice these white little blotches, which is basically iron deficiencies. They notice all sorts of problems in their bone structures and all sorts of other things because of certain lack of sufficient good quality protein, minerals, and fat-soluble vitamins that are actually affecting these people. They tend to be shorter as well for a whole lot of reasons, including the malnourishment that they get from those plants. If the higher they're on those plants, the more malnourished they are, the less high quality protein they're going to have to build bigger bodies. When you look at all this anthropological evidence and stuff like that, and how can you actually then even argue these sort of points? It's just so contraindicated. And not only that, I mean, just
be quiet, Ted.
Oh, that did come through.
Ted, be quiet. Who are Ted? Goodness me.
Good on you, Ted. Oh, see, he's an IT expert, mate. He's an IT expert.
He's always finding a way.
Give him a clap. Give him a clap.
Give him a clap. He's always finding a way to get his.
He probably has clap as well, but that's another thing altogether. The places where he sticks his banana.
Yeah. Dear idea.
Yes, I mean that's the thing with our world, that we have this complete disconnect from reality. We have this complete misunderstanding of biochemistry and how the body works. And it's when people basically have grown up in this carb-loaded sort of madness and all that, it's understandable. I mean, that's all they hear from the moment they go to school. Their PE teacher, all these, it just gets an indoctrination. And when you're indoctrinated so severely, it's very hard to think outside that box for a lot of people, unless they have a major medical issue or they notice something in their environment, or they notice another person doing something different and noticing they're actually getting results. It's only then. Otherwise, well, Ted pulled the plug on him,
That's all good. I'm still here. I'm just trying to play around and see if I can get the bullshit happening in the right way.
Well, hey, don't ruin a good story. It was a good story about Ted pulling the plug.
It was, wasn't it? It was a good story. Now my OBS is playing up.
Okay. If you need to go out and come back in, just do it.
Never work with children or small teddy bears. I would say, Harry. I would say as the.
Mate, I've been telling you that for ages. You play around with Ted for far too long. It's causing all sorts of grief.
Quite so. Now, what I need to do is
honest.
We love us some honest up in here, don't we?
Yes. G'day, Bo.
Well, fuck me, look at that.
Ah, mate, you've actually bought the back. You bought the background in as well. Done well.
That's all fucking happening. I will just sort that out so that it's looks the way it should look. And yeah, right. Everybody's happy now.
Where's Pim? I've been trying to get Pim to come on to actually, just tell us about her, new program and all that. Because I think I've actually been looking at it, and I think it's a really good program that people can take and actually put on their social media and promote to their families. You
bet. Yeah, no, she's a busy little bee. She's running around doing her thing, trying to promote the thing, and rightly so. It is a fantastic program she's got running there. It's pitched, I think, at a really good level. It's accessible, and the one thing that Pim's got going for her that I don't is patience. She will sit with people and she will go through all of that. So look, if guys, if you know anybody that has issues with type 2 diabetes, or indeed anything around blood sugar control, any of that kind of stuff, send them across to Auntie Pim. She will sort them out, and and that's the way it is, pretty much.
Thank you. Yeah, look, I think a lot of us know people that have got diabetes and stuff like that. So I've posted a lot of her stuff on my social media as well.
My sound is bad,
and been telling. No. What? That was an earlier thing. That was an earlier thing.
All right. My sound is not bad. Good. Sorry, sorry, Harold. Carry on.
Yeah, it was actually, it was playing up a bit, but I think it's just until you sort of linked it through. It's one of those things. It's just the way you do.
Look, I said to Ted that I couldn't give him a voice for the day, unfortunately, and basically he said to me,
well, we expect that from him. You should know that. I mean, you're playing with fire when you associate with Ted. You're playing with fire. You've had the childhood traumas and experiences. Let's not forget.
Yes.
They're countless. Ted's always a bit vague about them. He's a naughty boy.
He is naughty.
What is? It's going to come up. Yeah, I'll leave. That was that one of Fappers, but people want to go and look. Oh, this one, I mean. It's sort of coming through. And that's on out of the Discord, what I can see. Yep. I'll leave that for the gang that's actually following all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Why is he see-through? That's no good.
Oops.
Can't win, can we, with Ted today?
No. Your background's gone all black. Was that deliberate or?
Yeah, I did that because I was trying to get.
Just Ted.
So that we could see Ted properly, but there we go. But you just talk amongst yourselves.
As they do. You should know that. He looks a bit better. The closer he is to you, it's sort of he blends in. Yeah, they're much better. Yep.
Funny.
Yes. I think it's against your own your white skin sort of, then it sort of adjusts.
My what, Harold? My white skin? Goodness me, you racist!
Oh, that was a bigoted moment.
It was bigot.
Oh God, you can't even say benign things like that anymore in this world.
You can't say anything anymore.
It's a weird thing. You can't say I'm a man. I'm not a man on my knee. You're not a woman. You're not a woman. You are. What are you, Ted?
Liquid ass.
Not surprised.
Oh, Ted has Tourette's, in case anyone doesn't understand what's going on. He can't help himself. It's not his fault. I think he was deprived of oxygen when I was born.
Must have been. Or you, also, or did you put the pillow over him? Be honest.
Yeah. It's okay, Ted. It's okay. It's okay, Ted. Relax. It's okay. It'll be over soon, Ted. It'll be over soon. Yeah. Oh, good.
Explains everything.
Doesn't it really?
Yes, basically. Well, dairy's one of those things that, Bart does really bad on, poorly, and I do quite well. And it's just genetics, really, guys. It's just really genetics adaptation. It's simple as that.
It's only breeding.
Exactly. Oh, yes. The old crude way of actually describing it. We've just upset more people.
Yes, bigots that we are.
You can't say breeding. You can't say any of that sort of stuff. Bart. Hasn't Ted told you?
Ted's told me a lot of things recently. I think you've probably been privy to some of them.
Yes.
Incredible.
It's in regards to your Discord, I suspect.
Oh, good, awesome. That's very nice to hear. It's those that are interested in Discord, get over there. Discord's a great thing. We have a great little community. Well, not really even very little community anymore. It's a burgeoning community over there on the Discord. It's a good thing. Get involved. Get yourselves over there, and boosting the channel is a good thing too. Thanks, Neffy. We appreciate that.
Yeah, get your sleep. You can see us. You can see us at a later stage.
Of course, you'll miss all the fun.
That's true. That's true. And the opportunity to make a remark or two as it goes.
Yeah.
I'm expecting Lukey to jump in at some point as well.
It's my person, remember? My person, not my man. We're not bigots here.
Yes. You're right. You're right.
Even if we are both, in fact, men, we cannot be identified as such, because that's racist and bigoted and sexist and whatever else.
I'm a Tasmanian devil. Just to clarify that. That exactly. I do play the role of a dingo now and then. A non-binary one.
Jared.
The world's just gone mad, Just you look at some of these comments, that are around, and you go, God Almighty. You know what? I would not want to be a biologist nowadays, trying to explain the birds and the bees in a scientific manner, and trying to then going on to some show and trying to explain it in a normal way. I actually saw this lady on, I can't remember which show it was, and she was she's a scientist and biologist, just talking about, there's only two sexes, male and female, and she was absolutely caned, and you could see, she was, trying to remind them, science only tells us that, there are these specific chromosomes. There's no other, way of actually differentiating scientifically the two sexes. And you could see these people saying, well, exactly. I agree, Ted, with you. You should have been on that show. To give them hell.
He would have been if they'd have asked him, I imagine. Ted's and everything up for trumpets.
I can imagine. It would be crude and rude all the way.
Yes.
A few regulars here. Good to see. the biggest thing that I find with this damn thing is it's so like sort of epoxy. You sort of have to the screen sort of adjustments and all that. That's the only thing that I realize I need a bigger monitor for exactly running Restream compared to StreamYard. It's a bit of a
you get what you pay for, of course, don't you, Harry?
That's true. That's true. Yes, it's all free.
I find that StreamYards is a great platform for live streaming, except for that one major flaw that it's got with the chat window that keeps jumping and auto navigating to comments, and you lose your place and you have to go back and find it and shit.
Yeah.
For that one reason alone, and I've told them, I don't know how many times I've told them, if you don't fix this, you will not get a red cent out of me. I will never subscribe to your fucking platform because it is that fucking serious.
Well, I've told them a couple of times as well. And you've never got a reply, have you?
No.
Yeah, neither have I.
No.
It's ridiculous.
But I still keep sending an email every month saying, why don't you join us and pay us fucking $100 a month or something? I say, well, because you won't fucking respond, you won't reply, and you won't fix your fucking poxy fault. Everything else is great except that.
Yeah, anyway, exactly. Oh, just on. I did want to come back on that, but I'll just quickly on that. Protein's got Protein's got shitloads of tryptophan, so stop worrying about it. But I actually got an email back from. I sent actually an email to like Restream, and they actually sent me back. A couple of hours later, they responded to me. Actually, there was a human that actually responded. Not one. There was a first email that came through, which was basically the sort of like the group thing, and then I got a second one from a specific human, an actual human being, not a bot, not an AI, an actual human being that actually responded to me.
Wow!
And gave me an explanation. And where with StreamYard, I've never got zilch. I mean, all the feedback and even zilch. It's like it goes into a black hole and disappears forever. And I think
don't this though, Harry. It's just a hole.
It's not a black hole.
No, goodness no. All holes matter. That's what I keep telling him.
But this one, yeah, you're right. It's not a black hole. This does not radiate out. Radiation does it? Doesn't radiate anything out again. No, you're right. You're right. It's not a black hole.
No.
That was my mistake. Thinking that it was a real black hole.
Yes, indeed.
That's a Mickey Mouse failure on my part.
Message is that any hole is the goal.
That's it.
God, there's a lot of bigots in here today, isn't there?
Bloody hell, there is.
No, you're right. You're quite right, Fappers. You can't identify as a man. I identify as Ted's bitch.
Exactly. And I identify as the Tasmanian devil.
Good.
Basically. Yes, we all can. You can identify as whatever you like. I mean, some people do identify as attack helicopters. They have been on Bart's live streams, different makes and different fits, so yes. Why limit yourself?
I've had all sorts on my channel, everything from Lego trains, fucking
it's nothing like a Lego train.
Exactly. Attack helicopters. I've had pine trees, and I've also had a fat syphilitic cunt from Chorley.
Oh well, she always appears. Oh, you did actually, literally on your. That's true. She always appears. She's got a soft spot for you.
Oh God! No, I don't need imagery. I don't need imagery. Oh no.
Hey, do you know when people are so just look at her. She went from Frankie. She went to these. When she actually gets her teeth into something, she has this obsession. It's she really. I think she does. It's this really obsessive behavior she has. It's probably the vegan diet mainly, but it's crazy obsessions.
Yes.
G'day, Jules. Good to see you.
Zombies in the house.
Yes, yes.
Rock on.
Lovely lady from Queensland. Actually, Sky was in here earlier, so she
was.
did.
Where did she go?
Yeah, I don't know. Where Sky tends to come in and go. She doesn't stay for too long. She'll come in,
Yeah,
sometimes she'll ask the odd
long
question.
enough to drop some fucking shit and then run away, isn't it, Sky?
That's it.
Stick around for the backlash, pussy. Eh? We love you.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
We definitely do.
Trouble's a monkey. Yeah, good. Most hairiest ways. Yes.
Ah, yes, he is.
Like it.
He's devilish. He's. God, I'm at the bottom. I can't believe it. I'm at the bottom of my chat box. That's one. It takes me a bit of time to get there normally.
That's incredible.
I know. I went with the flow.
Tell you what, while we're waiting for some people to come up with some questions, why don't we give Yellow Ted the floor for about 3 minutes?
We should definitely.
Wait,
all yours, Ted.
Ted, you've got 3 minutes and 40 seconds to tell us what you think about everything.
I'll mute myself.
Hello, I'm Brian Blessed, and
welcome to this
special Webby. I'm so sorry, we'll never fucking finish. Here we go.
Next one for my bollocks.
Ooh, lucky bastard.
Tudor big bollocks.
I thought I was going to lose my bollocks and cock.
And I won't have any of your bastards shooting a bloody polar bear.
Are you allowed to say fuck? You fucking assholes. Oh, fuck. Fucking. Which fucking.
The Queen said to me, you know, Mr. Blessed, the other week when you were on about 2 years ago, have I got news for you? You did say F-U-C-K 30 times, but you didn't appear to swear. But of course, it's an Anglo-Saxon word, fuck. It means spreading of seed.
Connect, you arsing John Bucket.
The fucker on the nose.
When the 70 degrees below zero, with a wind chill factor of 70, as I approached the magnetic North Pole, I had to have a shit. I must have a shit. He went over there, had a shit, came back. And when you get to it, it's a picture of a horse's ass. And there were several polar bears around. There's a great big buck, this one. Oh, fucking arsehole. Pull your finger out, Julian, you lazy bastard.
Bastard.
And have I got news for you? I think I said fuck about 50 times. What? I don't know what the fuck it is. For the last swimmer is out. Fuck. Fucking come. Okay, well, fucking thing. What the fuck's happened to you? You're doing fuck all at the moment. What the fucking deal? What's going on? Where the fuck are you?
It's gone.
It's gone. Go back, love, with the fucking thing. I'm back to the fucking beginning. Where the fuck are we? Fuck. I just created a new group called the King of France as a face like a beggar's ball back. From a water, fucking water. Give me that fucking bash back. You should see my cock. And keep your knackers in your underpants, you dirty bugger. And but of course, fuck is an Anglo-Saxon word. It means spreading seed. For fuck's sake, anyone knows that. I'm buggered if I know what it was about. There's a terrible smell of shit. I couldn't get it to do decal. Ah! Bang! Straight on his fucking nose. Yeah! Straight in its fucking face. I'll kill you, you bastard! And he buggered off. And yes, I said bollocks. Fuck it. Bollocks. Okay. Oh. Bollocks. Oh, bollocks. Bollocks. Something I can say, bollocks. No, bollocks. Bollocks!
Remember to stay at a steady pace.
What?
Not too loud.
Can't keep the fucking thing at a steady pace. Bollocks! 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 Oh, fuck it. Palm pilot! Sounds like a wanking machine. A few... shit. I'll start again. Take two. Well, fuck.
Oh, shit, I've said fuck. Oh, fuck, I've said shit.
No, look.
I named this ship Felicity Ann, and God save all those who sail in there. Upper. Oh, shit. Oh, fuck, I've said shit. Ah, shit, I said fuck.
No, there was a woman down the alleyway, Mrs. Holmes, and she's going to report me for saying bugger, you know. Oh, just wait till I see your mother. You're in real trouble. Oh, I say, well, if you're going to go and see her, then tell her this bugger-shaped, fucking sphincter, arsehole up your ass, up your cunt. Fuck you sideways, you fucking boring fucking whore. Fuck off, you cow.
Right. So those are all things that Ted will be saying in future on videos, I imagine, when I can be asked doing the editing. There you go.
He's such a linguist.
He is, and he's so poetic,
Refined and poetic. You're right.
Although he seems to think he's Brian Blessed. I need to.
He's confused.
He is.
It's a mental thing. Have you taken him in for therapy?
Well, I'm still thinking about that pillow, Harry. To be fair.
Yes, it sounds like there is something loose. It's definitely yes. Look, he needs to reorientate him, in terms of refinement in that level. He needs to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
Tell him he'll become very popular if he does that.
Yes, I think he's pretty popular now, to be fair, Ted.
Oh, that's true. That is true. Yes.
I just don't want him to completely take over the entire program like he did today.
Yes, I know, exactly. Appalling. I don't know why you give him such liberties,
Well, I'd give him a whole bunch more if I had been asked doing the editing before that. But as I say, those are all things that at various times Ted will probably end up saying on various videos, because there's a lot of material to get at there that I haven't worked through yet. So good.
Oh, apparently somebody thinks he's a vegan.
Dear, oh dear. I don't know.
God, that's hate speech. Do you realise that?
Absolutely. Yes. So the optimal resting heart rate, that's a good one. It's well, I mean, the textbooks will tell you that 60 to 80 as an adult person is ideal. 60 at complete rest and 80 orthostatic. There's a standard deviation around that. That's normative. Who's to say that normative is optimal? I'm not sure. Obviously, the fitter physically you get, the lower your resting heart rate becomes. But is fitness synonymous with optimal? Because you look at a lot of people who are very fit and you wouldn't say that they were optimally healthy, for example. So it's kind of that's a tapestry with a lot of threads, isn't it, Harry?
It's a really strange one. I've actually shown people, my sort of heart rate that I've actually monitored on a couple of occasions, resting heart, and it can vary quite a bit in that low range. When I do, if I actually just do high intensity and a lot of weight bearing exercises, it will sit around the actual high 50s, low 60s. Sometimes it can go a bit lower into the mid 50s. But if I actually do, even with taurine, which I know prevents to a large extent remodeling of the left ventricular, even then, if I do, even when I combine some other days where I'm doing, I'm not doing cardio, but I'm doing, let's say, quite a bit of cardio, like long walks with the mates and stuff like that and whatever, and I come back and actually check the next day, it can actually get down into the 40s. But because I've done as I said last year, I did a heart scan. There's no remodeling, there's no change, there's no stuff. Look, I've got no bloody idea, because there's no research that I can find, how those muscle fibers within the heart are may be slightly altered in some way from these different activities, like happens in your regular muscles. Yeah. And maybe there's something in it in that regard that does have that effect. It's I'm just throwing it out there. I've got no proof, but just looking from my own activities.
Really interesting when you start thinking about the health of the myocardium in terms of fitness anyway, the fitness of the heart. There's all these people saying, do your cardio. Cardio is good for your heart. It's good. Cardiovascular fitness, they call it. Well, hang on a minute. Your heart muscle does not fatigue. It is immune to fatigue. It does not need to be trained. your heart contracts as fast and as forcibly as is required by your physiology at the time. So are we training our heart? No. Sure, the heart muscle, the actual bulk of the heart muscle, the shape of the heart muscle, as Harry was talking about there, it can remodel, it can reshape. Your heart can undergo hypertrophy, it can become stronger. And that would be in order to pump your blood at higher force, more than to be immune to fatigue, because it's already immune to fatigue. So it's a really fascinating area, I think. And the same with your vasculature, really. You say, well, you're training your vascular fitness. Well, hang on. What do your veins have to do? Oh, that's right. Carry the bloody blood that's pumped through it.
Exactly.
So what training is involved in that? The training that you do when you're fitness training is to train your muscles, your skeletal muscles, which are absolutely fatigable. And it's to train them to be less fatigable at a given intensity, at a given exercise output for a given period of time, as required by the specific requirements of your day-to-day life, your day-to-day activities. All fitness is absolutely specific. So if you're training to do 10,000 meters, then your training should be 10,000 meters. Not 10,001 and not 9,999. 10,000 is what you should be training. And you should be running that as hard and fast as you possibly can every single time you do it. And you should do it no more than 3 times a week. This whole idea, like Harry was talking about just before with what he's calling cardio there, and I understand why, because everybody does it. But walking is not cardio training. Walking is just incidental activity. So people think that when I say don't do cardio, they think I'm saying you should never go walking. Of course I'm not fucking saying that, because that's just incidental activity. That's not exercise, really, but to speak of. It's what I'm talking about is that mid-range stuff, the stuff between walking and the high end. All your training should be high end. All your incidental activity should be very low end. Stay the fuck out of the middle is what I'm saying. I hope that clarifies my position. Yeah. Anyway, enough waffling. Go on.
And the most important thing is those sort of people that do that mid-level type, which is running, which is that constant steady state running, which is what they do in order to, achieve their goals as they perceive them in that regard. Whether they're on doing marathons and all that. I remember the ancient Greek that actually ran from marathon to warn the Athenians of the actual Persian invasion.
Yeah.
And he died when he got there.
That's right.
Yeah. And that should be a warning to anyone, even, the ancient Greeks that actually had the Olympic Games and all these sort of things, realized that cardio was a problem. And if you take a look at the actual Olympic sports, there was a lot of sprinting, short length sprinting, which is very much, that high intensity type stuff, boxing, all the other sort of, muscle type or weight bearing type activities and all that. Yeah. It's only the modern sort of stuff where we've actually introduced a lot of these other things.
Exactly.
I don't think, you look at the tribal people. You don't see tribal people doing steady state cardio. No, they will actually walk.
No.
And then when they see an animal, they will just walk behind it until it achieves some level of exhaustion, because it can't sweat. So it basically starts panting like mad and heating up, slowing down, and then they will run in that high intensity moment with spears and bring down that animal very fast.
Yeah,
and that
he was just saying in there that that Comrade Pavel says that the limiting factor is the mitochondria, and that's another example of partial correctness from Comrade Pavel. He's partly right.
Mitochondria,
exactly. Mitochondria, absolutely, very, very important, but they're not the limiting factor in and of themselves by themselves. It is holistic interaction between a number of different gears in a gearbox that subserve exercise physiology. And while Pavel is right, mitochondria are vital. They are not the only part of the program. So
yes, and that's a lot of confusion there about that connection and that interaction with the filament, right down to the filaments. It's
Feppers says that Ted should get rid of me and he should take over entirely.
I know, quite rude, isn't he?
I know, he's unbelievable.
He's a fan of this popular Kiwi bigot. Bloody hell.
We know. Hey, Jared.
Oh, hang on. I'm getting some major audio glitches. I can't hear you guys.
Okay. Go out and come back in.
No, there we go.
We all know that Feppers is keen on the odd small furry creature, don't we?
Oh yes.
We've heard the tale.
Oh yes, we do.
Don't let him near Yellow Ted. It'd be too enjoyable mutually.
Exactly. I think the duct tape will be coming out. Okay. But
Yes.
So this is a new platform, Harry.
Yeah, it's. I've been using. This is the third time I've used it.
Well,
so it's called Restretch. Well, yeah. It's a bit different in the style and the way it actually sort of works. But I'm still fiddling around with it. I'm still trying to work things out. It's sort of it's getting there. It's an alternative. It's not too bad in some regards, like where the StreamYard or it's the comment thing will just start racing away and you can actually lose your spot and it can actually go away. This sort of sits in its place, even though it'll push stuff, it just moves very slowly. So I can actually pace myself, right. Where I can't do that with sort of the actual StreamYard. That's the only downside, but it is clunky. I've had to use the whole screen on this side, move my chat box over here. It's awkward. I know I have to go and get a bigger screen. That's something that I'm sort of planning to do at some point. I did ask a mate of mine whether I could actually lend one of his. Ted wants to say something. Oh, Ted's just. Hey, Ted, say something.
I'm not sure that's a good idea. Every time he opens his mouth, it's just flaring, filth and flaring.
I can believe that.
Well, I just figured I'd pop by for my weekly mukbang here. I haven't eaten my dinner on your stream in a while.
Oh, you haven't? That's true. It is definitely true.
Are you retarded?
Ted, stop it. Goodness me. Dreadful behaviour.
Anyway. Ted actually suffers Dylan. Ted suffers from parasites as well. He has those sort of issues.
Yeah, I'm one of them, apparently, according to Peppers. Cheeky bastard.
That's sort of an open, Dylan. That's a bit of an open-end question. You should direct that to Ted. He knows more about parasites than anyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And you should also ask Ted what happens to people who go vegan, and he will probably say,
"Liquid ass."
Kind of thing. It's just dreadful.
So what it caused it for you?
Monster. I've created a monster.
Was it pussy feces? Oh, I couldn't help myself. Sorry. Oh no. There you go. There you go. Oh well. Hey, you don't have to worry. It's not monetized yet.
Yeah.
So that's it. So we can say whatever we like.
Exactly.
Practically within reason, before the YouTube overlords come down on us harshly.
Right. I see you're still enjoying the old rape-based beverage there, Jared, which is good to see.
Oh yeah, he loves that.
Yep. For now, we'll see how much. How much
Are you able? Have you been able to get the raw stuff, or
yeah? If I'm drinking milk, it's raw. I can't drink pasteurized milk.
All right. So you've been sneaking across the border, have you, to get it, or contraband?
It's the tunnel. But I don't personally have to go anywhere. The goons bring it for me, of course.
Good.
I told you that oil tunnel, now that they're not using it for oil, will come in handy.
Mm.
Yes, repurpose the pipeline for milk.
That's it.
That's good thinking, Harry.
Yeah. Also, I think Uncle Joe is repurposing the tunnel to transfer all of those warheads that he is now raining down on brown people's heads. Very progressive of Joe to be doing so, I must say.
Yes, the best meme that I saw of that was Joe Biden as Indiana Jones swapping the golden idol with the bag of sand, except he had a check and a bomb.
Yes.
Yes. A favourite friend of the military-industrial complex.
Yes.
Let's start another war.
Mm.
Yeah, Joe will be into that. Good money in it.
Yeah. Not too many questions today, Harold. What's going on?
I think they came here for the comedy, mate.
Did they? Well, they're shit out of luck, aren't they?
Exactly.
I know. They've got you, they've got me, they've got Ted, they've got Jared. I suppose that's pretty funny.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly.
I'm half in the audience here, just enjoying a meal, listening to you two.
That's it.
Yes, Harry's over 700 subs now. Very good.
Yes,
yeah.
703. Thank you.
Awesome. Yep.
I
tell you what,
the lifetime of daily coffee may shrink a part of the brain.
Get to 1,000 subs, and you'll be absolutely screwed then, because they'll demonetize you straight away, probably.
I actually have never heard this. Have you ever heard that coffee will actually cause brain shrinkage?
No, I've never. Yeah.
What is the mechanism? Can you please elaborate? Because I've got no idea. Never heard that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, I know that there are fast metabolizers. Like myself, I've got genetics for fast metabolism, so I can clear it out in my system pretty fast. But never heard of brain shrinkage. That'd be a new one. You know? Probably the only thing, if you've got a leaky gut, there may be issues with some of the lectins getting through. That's about it. But beyond that, can't think of anything else.
I'm about 6 weeks into coffee cessation for myself.
Please send me any study that you may have.
4 weeks continuously. I stopped for 2 weeks and had one coffee, and then continued stopping.
Oops. Let's move on from that one.
I've had since 31st December. I've had 3 cups of coffee in the entire time since then. So that's, for me, that's incredible.
I sort of vary mine. Sometimes I'll have 3 in a day. Sometimes I'll have none, and sometimes I'll have just 1 or 2. It's sort of, I'm all over the place. I'm never consistent with my sort of coffee consumption. But it doesn't really affect me. You know, it's sort of because I clear it out of my system so fast. It's like, you know, it doesn't have any buzz to or whatever. Other people say, oh, you know, but usually it's people that basically it does affect. And probably if it does affect them, if you can feel something when you have coffee, it's probably it's probably an indicator that you probably shouldn't be having it at all, because you probably don't have the genetics. It's a bit like, you know, if you don't feel really, you know, you don't feel really great when you're having milk and you've got lactose intolerant, maybe it's not a good idea to consume it. You know, it's like that with coffee as well, because a lot of people within the sort of Middle East, within the Greek world and all that, have been consuming coffee since antiquity for thousands of years. So we have, to a large extent, genetics that basically in our populations that get metabolized quite quickly. We're quicker metabolizers. It is surprising that some people in Northern Europe also do have those genetics. It may be due to there was an ancient tribe, even going back to the Minoans, who actually traded within the northern parts, you know, coming through the into the Atlantic and up along the coast, and did actually trade with some of those populations. So they may have had access much earlier. But yeah, it's really hard to explain otherwise why these people would have these genetics. But who knows? I know that there have been population movements that have moved into the Balkan regions and into the sort of like Anatolia and back, sort of a number of tribes, and especially some of the Germanic tribes, and sort of the Gauls came through as well. And there's actually we used to call them the milk people, or the Galatus was their name, their nickname, and they actually settled in Anatolia, and they were sort of absorbed within the Greek world. They Hellenized over that time. So there is that possibility as well. I can't explain any other way why those genes would be there.
Yeah, I largely have Northern European genetics, and I never particularly found that coffee maybe. I have to drink quite a lot of it for it to make me jittery or wired feeling. Usually it would just make me feel nice and alert. Didn't particularly give me any huge energy boost, and I didn't particularly have a slump stopping it either. It's just something I enjoyed.
Yeah. So you may have fast metabolizer genes as well, because if you're not feeling any effect, neither do I. I just like the taste because I've just grown up with it. I mean, Greeks, like in their mid like when they used to have their midday type meal, after their meal, that midday where they had like a little snack, because it was just 2 meals a day really that people in the past used to have, because they used to work in the daytime or on the land, and come back at about 10:30, 11 when they had their first meal. They broke their fast, so to speak. So it was 2 meals a day, and that sort of midday thing where you just have basically a coffee and maybe something like a snack or whatever. But yeah, it was. I know in my dad's village, they have their sort of like goat cheese. They will have their goat cheese, and in the summer period, they will have things like some fruit here or there that's available in just that 1 month or whatever. In the spring period, they'll have like things like cucumbers and stuff like that. Things that usually grow in certain parts of the year, the seasonal stuff. So they'll have a bit of that. But that's it's they do it every day. Greeks just drink so much coffee every day. It's just ingrained in them so much. Take that away, you'd probably have a rebellion in the country.
Yep.
And the Arabs are very much the same. Most Middle Eastern people. Any thoughts on why people such as Ben? Hold on. G'day, Lukey. I just saw the private chat come up and it obscure everything for me because it's really the screen. Anyway, I'll just put you on.
Hello.
Good to see you here, Lukey.
Okay. How are we doing?
Yeah, just joining in as usual. After 9 p.m. my time, it gets really calm over here. So yeah, it's prime time to join the stream.
Awesome.
Any opinions?
Sorry, hopefully, I'm hoping that I don't mean to be making a face at you, Luke. Your audio is doing the same thing it was when I first joined. I'm not sure it'll level out. I think it's my end, not your end.
Yeah, I think it sorts itself out in a few minutes, Jared. It's just kind of...
It sounds like a sci-fi alien language, like halfway between monotone roboting and like a rhythmic tone or something, clicking.
Very good.
No idea what's going on.
Yeah, I can hear you now, Luke.
Yeah, this one here is about any thoughts about people such as Ben Greenfield, Baker, Saladino, other carnivores having extremely high, sex hormone binding globulin, leaving a low free testosterone in the blood. Any opinion on that? I don't know what other people's levels are. So,
for my money, Harry, what you need to do with any of these kind of things is, unless you've got a series of repeat measurements on the same individual over at least 3, 4, 5 months, any one given reading is about as useful as tits on a bull.
Exactly. That's what. And the other thing is, a lot of people don't realize sleep can affect this. It's not only food. Sleep can affect this. Vitamin D can affect it as well. There are so many different factors that can affect this. It's hard to say. just because certain people have certain things.
Also, whether or not you're getting your end away.
Yeah, yep. These sort of things that can have an effect, your psychological state or whatever. There's so many factors. It's really hard to say, because I've seen other carnivals that are basically shown much higher levels. So there are so many variations of people that have basically put up their stuff in the past. There's not a consistent pattern to be able to say it's the diet. Exactly. So I suspect it would be something outside the diet, because even people on a SAD diet, some people have very low and some people have normal levels or high. And so there's got to be a whole lot of other factors, circadian rhythms, sleep quality, vitamin D status. There's a lot of different things that are at play. The type of exercise you do as well can have an effect.
Low free testosterone has to do with the receptor site density too, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. But that's also affected by a number of micronutrients as well. Particularly, there's a lot of D receptors in your testes.
A quick shout out, Harry, to the absolutely legendary Dr. Nephilim research all the way up there in Norway, who is here at 2:30 in the fucking morning his time, but also has been boosting the Discord server like an absolute trooper. Good on you, Neffy. We love you. Great work, son.
Yeah, he's a champion.
For you who are not on the Discord server, why not? It's fucking great. Yellow Ted says so.
Does Yellow Ted doesn't have a
That's
Discord
not going to come out of there.
Yellow Ted doesn't have his own Discord. No, I can't. I mean, it was against
his own account.
It was against my better judgment, Jared, to even let him say anything audibly at all, frankly. And I'm starting to think maybe it was a good idea that he was silent, frankly, because I've given him a couple of opportunities to show his knowledge, and instead he's just come up with a torrent of abuse and Tourette's. It's quite disappointing. What do others think about Ted's performance so far? It's been.
I was wondering if he might have strong-armed you into letting him speak on that recent YouTube short.
Yes, he did, and then today on the premiere today, over an hour or so, basically he was quite disparaging about those nice people that were saying things about stuff, wasn't he?
I'm just going to say this. I'll come to Ted's defense. I think, I mean, he did actually, perform better than yourself. Is it sour grapes, mate?
Are you saying he was better than me, Harold?
Well, I think he was an absolute trooper, a champion, a muscle head. Probably. It's one of those special, those weird moments of mine. He has that effect on people. He's like mesmerizing when he appears. You lose all faculties and sense of logic, thought.
It's crazy.
He has an effect. He grows on you.
He does. Cardiac hypertrophy, high intensity activity on a rowing machine till one faints. Yeah, probably not the best plan. Cardiac hypertrophy is actually not a good thing. Remodeling of the heart tissue such that the walls of the ventricle, mainly the left ventricle, get thicker, actually at a point becomes contraindicated. It interferes with the function of the contractility. It's like if you have a bodybuilder that builds huge skeletal muscles to the point where they actually can't reach their own back anymore or tie their own shoelaces because they're so grossly dysmorphic. The same thing happens in the heart, and it actually gets to a point where you'll find that a lot of these people will have cardiac issues, especially, after a few years of doing that. So I'd be staying away from that, frankly.
Definitely. You can
on the upside, high intensity burst and repeat type activity is not going to lead to cardiac hypertrophy.
Definitely not. And look at how many. When you take a look at, you can see plenty of bodybuilders that are in their 80s, 90s, or whatever that are still around. And I've shown a few in the past live streams, but there's not many, marathon runners that basically, like that won Olympic medals, like Americans and Europeans and a whole lot of other people from different parts of the world, even from Africa, that basically are in that centenarian age. So let that be a warning to you.
Yeah, I feel like the last word in that question might be a hint that it's not good for you.
The one paints, exactly. Yeah. Or has a cardiac arrest, of some sort, a heart incident, to be more precise, of some sort. So, I mean, I honestly think
cardiovascular accidents.
Exactly. I actually think that sports coaches and trainers and people or support staff that support people that are doing this type of activity, marathons of different types, I think they need to get themselves up to scratch with some of the, the best science, and realize that, if you're going to do something like that, you need to minimize or lower the level of remodeling. And the only substance that can do that is higher doses, potentially anywhere from 6 to 10 grams of taurine. It's the only way that's actually been shown in the literature to basically prevent this sort of severe remodeling. And I think that people that are going to be doing these activities really need to up their levels. And in particular, the older they get, the more they need, So up to 10 is fine. There are issues with blood pressure. There are people that are susceptible to low blood pressure, or if they're on meds, they definitely need to pace themselves with slow amounts. And even if because it has an effect, taurine also has an effect on the actual fluids within your intra and extracellular fluids within your bloodstream and within your cells. So you've got to actually not go like 6 grams, 10 grams. No. Don't do that. You've got to go like 1 gram, then pace yourself next week 2 grams and move up. And if you're on blood meds, you definitely have to basically go and check and make the adjustments and bring them down appropriately. We don't want people passing out or putting themselves at risk. It does lower. The higher you go with taurine, it does dramatically lower blood pressure. So you got to keep that in mind. And I would say for most young people, probably 3 grams is all they need if they're doing, any sort of physical activities or stuff like that and want to prevent any remodeling. Most people on a carnivore diet will get plenty from meat when they eat a lot of meat and stuff like that. The older you get, you may want to add certain foods, and I've done a list. I've done a video that actually shows foods that are much higher in it. And the only time I actually recommend taurine supplementation in older people is when people have some fibrotic tissue in different organs. So if you've got fibrotic tissue in organs, whether it's the liver, whether it's kidneys, whether it's whatever, higher taurine is a good idea to basically clear a lot of that out. And I've actually helped people clear a lot of fibrotic tissue. Plus, even within my own heart, I've cleared out all the damage that I had, all the fibrotic tissue. There's none there. That was what my last scan showed. So that's what the literature shows us. The problem is when it comes to humans, we only have like short-term studies, and the majority of the studies are in rats. But at the same time, it's a mammal. And, the way, it's not like a diet. The way a specific nutrient works in most mammals is, it varies slightly, but it will, it may, the amount that is required to get a certain physiological effect may be slightly different. But at the end of the day, it's not, it's a single marker. It's not like a confounded thing of a whole lot of different nutrients like we get with epidemiology or these sort of silly studies that are not basically trying to, that have got too many confounding variables. There's a single variable, which is just taurine, and then they look at what effect it has with a control, what effect it has in terms of these effects on heart, kidneys, or whatever else. And so we can rely on that. It's the inference is strong. It's not gold-plated, because we'd never get a study where we could lock a human up for their whole entire lifetime. It's not going to happen, guys. Or older people, once they get to supplement them at a certain thing, it would be a good thing. I think a lot of people, older people, are having a lot of renal problems and all sorts of issues in older age. And they could do, because biosynthesis of taurine collapses after 65. And if you're in a nursing home, you're probably getting very poor quality protein as well. So you're getting bugger all. And I think this is a big reason why nursing homes, the incidence of a lot of these issues, like especially renal failure and stuff like that, are so high compared to the general community of elderly living in their homes. So I think they're really being fed crap, unfortunately, and they are made to become sicker more rapidly. That's my personal opinion anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just like to get those things out, because yes, well, I've covered that quite well, I think, and I've pretty much covered that on countless other videos that I've done about taurine. So check them out and get a few other bits of information on that. I do have more videos to do on taurine. That's part of a long list of things that I want to cover, but that will be in the future. So just keep on coming back and checking out what appears. Yep, thank you, Kate.
Awesome.
Yes, they give you.
It's a bit patronizing, no?
Yeah, but StreamYard doesn't do that. They respond to your emails. They are, they give you these sort of little messages. I think as a platform, they're a bit, it's the clunkiness that I find. I have to get used to it. Eventually, I will get used to it, and it won't bother me. But it's that clunkiness that I'm sort of still getting to grips with it, so to speak.
What does Yellow Ted think of it?
Liquid ass!
I'm not surprised.
Well, unbelievable.
Oh God, he's got a foul mouth, hasn't he?
I have created a monster here, Harold.
I told you. You bred a demon.
He did warn me. He did say, "Don't let him have the microphone," because he turned his microphone on.
Yeah, I know. I've only got myself to blame.
I know. Right.
Yes. I should know better. There was a guy at my high school in Oz who trained for months every day for their yearly cross-country run.
Oh, yeah.
On the actual race day, he sadly dropped dead, less than 40 from the finish.
Terrible.
In high school.
So, well, look, it does not surprise me, if people basically, because you can start really young, and if let's say you've got a species inappropriate diet, you're really getting, because remember, you still need a lot of the essential amino acids to basically, produce taurine and produce a lot of other things, and the body tends to sometimes prioritize certain things. You still need a certain pool of protein to provide, just to create the enzymes that you need to break down your food and to basically oxidize it. So why do people find it strange that our modern world of very low protein diets, the fear of protein, isn't creating these issues is beyond me. I did that recent video on protein up to 70%, and basically not an issue. The kidneys just become larger and adapt. So, and I would, Bart, you, Lukey, myself, I would struggle to consume that level. And that was basically, for a whole year, which would be equivalent to basically like 30 years for a human, one generation. That's a lot to push that level. And we didn't see any issues of gout. Everybody talks about gout, and and I turn around because a lot of people recently have been asking about gout and all that. I actually have done some videos, and I do, the high protein one and all that. And I would say to people, in a sort of a tongue-in-cheek way, get off the fucking alcohol.
Hey!
Because
hey,
because basically a lot of
I'm Brian Blessed, and welcome.
Oh shit! You're not Brian Blessed. Oh goodness me!
a lot of car. Oh, I bet he thinks a lot of things. I told you need to take him to a psychiatrist. Actually,
Lukey,
have him medicated. Have him medicated.
I think we should. Lukey said in the chat there he wondered whether or not Yellow Ted was a homunculus. And
yes.
Yellow Ted doesn't know such words. He got a bit offended, and actually what he said was,
"Hello, I'm Brian Blessed, and welcome."
No, you're not Brian Blessed, for goodness sake. So the other thing is, he was a bit offended actually by being called a homunculus. He thought that was, maybe he thought you were calling him a homosexual or something. I don't know.
Oh God.
He likes to be tied up. He does have some kinkiness to him.
He's a very bad boy.
Oh, yes, he is. Very much, very much. And I mean, the other point that I did want to make. Well, I was rudely interrupted by Ted.
I know he's rude, isn't he?
Oh, okay. Bloody hell, he is. But the thing is, these it just shows this craziness of disconnect. It's all the carb loading, sort of mania. But it's the same thing with people on a carnivore diet that say there are a couple of issues that can actually happen. There's one, basically, a lot of people could be at the early stage of coming into carnivore, and they've got a lot of oxalate dumping. And some of them think, oh, that's gout. No, it's actually oxalate coming out of your joints and all that sort of stuff. And you could have that oxalate dumping, and that could be a big issue as well. But if you've got a level, because if you look at basically any studies out there, all this sort of stuff about purines and all this sort of stuff and all that. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's more purines and more uric acid generated in parsley. The equivalent amount of parsley compared to meat. The equivalent amount of basically, like spinach is pretty high as well, and many other things. But the thing is, nobody would actually claim, that anybody in a keto diet eating some of these foods has got gout. No. It's not uric acid. It's the dysregulation of the uric acid cycle. That's when it becomes a problem, And when you become insulin resistant, uric acid also can act as a pro-oxidant in the cell, And the other thing that can happen is the uric acid at the kidney level, when you've got insulin resistance, can actually affect in its excretion and basically homeostasis. And there's plenty of studies that show that. I mean, even the Heart Foundation have got studies that show that. And then they sit there and recommend, a low purine diet, which is low red meat and stuff like that. They exclude the purine, high purine plant foods. They just basically go after all the animal foods. But that's because they're cognitive dissonance. But generally speaking, no, it's this dysregulation. It's the reason why the majority of people have these, really bad feet who are diabetics and have these severe puffiness on their, it's due to insulin resistance, guys. It's simple as that. And this dysregulation. And it's just crazy out there. And I usually say to people that you may have come to a carnivore diet and may have not adapted yet, and you may still have some underlying levels of insulin resistance. which you have to deal with. And sometimes the best way is actually a long fast that actually can really normalize things very rapidly, I find. A couple of days of fast usually normalizes blood sugar levels, normalizes insulin, brings it down. And then if you basically just up the fat, keep the protein slightly low until you can maintain that adaptation, and then you're going to be a bit more adventurous with the protein. But it's usually just a transition issue in those early days for most people. So yes, I just accidentally scrolled because I had my damn mouse over the damn, as you do. This time it's not the actual. It was me that actually. Yeah, that was strange. You know what it does when you actually scroll in restream sometimes, but everything above the one that you've selected will actually be highlighted.
Yeah,
it's a really strange thing. It doesn't happen.
Are you retarded?
If you say so, Ted, I won't disagree with you.
Ted, behave himself for 5 minutes, can he?
No, he can't. Well,
cool.
He's had that special education.
Hey, so there's a question there about backwards running as a training modality there.
You can answer that. I've got no idea about backwards training.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. When you do a graph of power to or contractile force, if you like, to velocity graph, you'll find that the most powerful skeletal muscle contractions possible are actually the eccentric ones. So you've got all the concentric ones are of lower force or lower power, if you like, than isometric, and then eccentric is more powerful again than that. So what you get with all kinds of eccentric muscle contraction is actually the maximum exercise intensity possible. So backwards cycling can be a very powerful way of training. I was doing a thing with some elite cyclists over in the UK a few years ago in preparation for the UK's assault, if you like, on the Olympics that were held over there a few years ago. And you'll note that the British cycling team did very, very well in that meet. Number of gold medals were gained by British athletes and stuff. I was actually involved in that up to my armpits. And what they were doing with those athletes, with those sprint cyclists like Sir Chris Hoy, for example, to drop a name, is we had a thing called an eccentric cycle ergometer, which was this machine that actually was like a normal cycle erg that you cycle on, except this thing had a motor that ran the pedals backwards with a given amount of force, and the athlete was required to resist that backwards pedaling motion and to push as if they're trying to pedal forwards, but actually the cycle erg was more powerful than the athlete. And what we were finding was after about 5 minutes of doing that per day, those athletes were getting DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, training response, for a week. And these are elite athletes that have forgotten what DOMS even feels like at that stage.
Mm.
And then they got to the Olympics and they cracked out their stuff at the Olympics. And well, we all saw what happened.
Mm.
So,
Exactly.
there you go. One of those secrets that I'm now free to talk about because it's over and done with.
Okay.
And worked out. But at the time, obviously, I wasn't allowed to say anything about it because, there you go.
Yeah, it's sort of, when you look at a lot of different populations, the way I remember looking at stuff that the North American Plain Indians, the way they sort of trained, some of their training to basically keep ahead of the actual buffalo and stuff like that. It was this very intense. It had to be very short and intense. And they would literally run these they were quite tall, these, well over 6 foot, close to 7 foot nearly. So they could actually get that higher acceleration. I remember a study years ago that there was a certain optimal level that can get slightly faster than a human, potentially faster than a buffalo, which basically means that they would be faster than, some of our top athletes today, quite faster to be able to sustain that.
Even some of these machines in gyms now, that the machines that you set the weight on the machine and you do the whatever it is. A lot of them now have got a setting where you can set the eccentric phase at 120, 130, 140% of what the concentric is. So let's say you're doing shoulder press on a machine with 50 kilos. You can say, right, I want to push 50 up, but when I get to the top and I'm coming down, I want the machine to impose 75 on the way down. So you can actually tear the muscles up that way. And incredible stuff that's coming out now for those who are in the know. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more.
Yeah, look, it sounds, pretty interesting stuff. I mean, I haven't looked into this stuff. It's probably stuff that I do want to chat with you about.
What do I know anyway, Harry? I'm just a bigot that wants growing and hates animals. So,
oh, you definitely are.
Yeah.
Well, you do have your exceptions. I mean, furry animals are okay. You do have one right next to you.
I do. Be quiet.
He's gone very quiet, hasn't he?
He has. He's been told. Yeah. Goodness me.
Anyone want to answer this one? Jared, you sort of have an interest in this sort of stuff.
Alkyl-glycerols. I don't know about that compound specifically, but I do know that when I drink more milk and eat more marrow and liver, I tend to feel better. I would say my recovery is probably faster too. Probably something to it.
Cool. Awesome.
I mean, they're just generally those three specifically, I don't know about spleen. I assume it would be being an organ food. They're all very, very nutrient dense as well.
Yeah, look, I've seen research that, but I haven't really seen any. It's in rats, but I haven't really looked at a lot of research in this one, but it's just, still, if you know of any mechanistic studies that actually show the actual mechanism, I'd be interested, because there's a lot of things like you find with even herbs or spices or whatever that say, oh, this has this benefit. And then when I go and look to try and find a mechanism, like a biological mechanism that actually drives that, an enzymatic pathway that actually has something actually happens, in some way, I can't find it. And it comes back to hormesis. And I'm going, well, I can exercise, get hormesis, or do this or that. So, I haven't found anything. If you have found something that shows mechanism and specific biological steps, please shoot me an email. I'd love to, or attach a link at the end of this stream. I would love to basically look into it. I'm always interested.
Not familiar, but it's absolutely.
Yeah, if somebody's got a mechanism, I'll send it to you. If I get it, Bart, I'll send it to you.
I've got a mechanism, Harry, but that's for another day.
Because there's a lot of things. I mean, to cover when it comes to human biology, there are so many intricate. We have hardly scratched the surface of all the different enzymatic pathways and all the different compounds and how they affect different parts of our physiology. Let alone understand the intricate complexity of the interactions of these different components. And that's why, when I hear people say, oh, we know what, no, we don't. These all the current studies really can tell us, well, for 1 year or 2 years or whatever, something, but that's about it. They can't tell us anything. That's why Bart has been saying for years, there is no damn fucking science for this sort of stuff, because we haven't locked people up for years and given them specific compounds or changed the composition of those things to really be certain. The only things that we do know for certain is we can demonstrate the Randall cycle in terms of mechanistics, how that actually happens. We can basically show certain hormones, the way they respond to certain macros, and what effects they have directly to our physiology. Things that we consume, the direct enzymatic pathways that actually are transcripted by our genes and upregulated, and then the N15 data. So that's what we've got, and that's what we claim. That is the best science we've got, the best stuff that we can, literally put forward, because there is nothing else in that regard. So if you do have something like that,
you've no actual evidence, then, Harry. You've just anecdotes. Is that all you've got? Just anecdotes, then, Harry. Just anecdotes. That's it. Just anecdotes, boys and girls. That's all they've got here.
Absolutely nothing else.
Apparently she's hung up a broom.
Chills from that.
Apparently she's hung up a broom for a bit, Jared.
Yes, we heard somebody actually mentioned it in a
as in like she's just quit YouTube or what?
Well, apparently she's had little to say and says she's lost her mojo, whatever a mojo is.
Who knows? The problem is you can't trust what vegans say. They always lie.
That's it.
That's the reality. So has pressure been put on her from her own academic circles?
I hope so. Because maybe. Because she's conducting herself like a cunt.
Basically.
Is she an air quotes academic?
She currently is employed in academia by a university in the north of England, who I imagine if they knew what she was about would probably say, yeah, we think you should probably stop doing that now.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
Because it reflects badly on them, frankly.
I didn't know that. I mean, I've paid her no mind at all, apart from what you've covered for the purposes of lampooning.
Myself included as well, Jared, for quite some time. I haven't been paying any attention at all. But if she has hung up her broom, that would be a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, this is one that I'm actually looking into. Fapnado sent me some links for some studies and stuff like that. I can't answer this yet because I haven't looked into it, but they are apparently in Canada and a few other places. They are feeding like tropical oils to cows, especially also milk, dairy cows.
Yeah.
And I've got no idea whether and what sort of, whether they change the fatty acid composition or not, or what effect it has in that regard. The problem may be, I shouldn't say the problem is, maybe, that's a big question mark. If you don't come from a population background that has actually consumed tropical oils for thousands of years, like Polynesians, Southeast Asians and all that, there's good literature out there that actually shows that certain parts, a high concentration of medium chain triglycerides can have a certain allergic effect in people. A lot of these are observational studies, unfortunately. Some are sort of, there's been some short-term type clinical stuff and all that, and they've actually noticed it, some effects. There's not enough. I do grant people that, and there is another possibility that with some people it could get worse with salicylate because some people are, especially Northern Europeans, tend to, unlike Southern Europeans, tend to basically be more salicylate sensitive. So, I mean, we've had salicylates in the Greek diet for a very long time, so it doesn't really affect us But Northern Europeans, it's another reason why I say, guys, you should not be consuming coconut or palm oil if you come from Northern Europe, because there's a potential you may have a salicylate problem, sensitivity. So stick to animal fats. That's what your ancestors primarily consumed to a much larger extent. In the Mediterranean and other parts, it was much warmer, so in summer they did access other things that had salicylates, and so they, over thousands of years, they've acquired some level of adaptation in that. So I would say, we haven't really pinned down the MCT side of the picture to the salicylate, and the problem is, even with MCT oils, they do have a certain concentration. They're not purified enough. They still have a certain concentration of salicylates in them. So I'm not convinced either way. I don't know. Basically, we don't know because we've never been able to prove, unless somebody can purify medium chains and then have a control, a medium chain one which is purified, no salicylates at all, and one with salicylates, to be able to pin down, is it the salicylates or is it the high amount of MCTs that people that are not used to it historically consuming is the problem, is really hard to pin down. It's another one of those things where we don't have enough research, guys, which is the biggest problem.
If you're a conspiracy theorist, Harry, you would say, given the lack of isolation of salicylates, what we can detect from that is that salicylates do not exist. You fucking idiots. Jesus Christ, I'm sick of this fucking bullshit. Anyway, carry on.
So with regards to the original question that was posted, the information was posted by Necrokitty on Bart's Discord. She had asked me if I had heard about this with, I guess the initial news article was saying that Canadians were noticing that their butter was no longer soft at room temperature, and it was because of increased saturated fat content. Now, of course, this being from a mainstream news site, they're saying that makes it less healthy for you because there's more saturated fat in it. I haven't noticed this because I get my butter grass-fed from New Zealand. But
rock on.
The alarming, the alarming part of it was that the article was advocating for supplementing more Canadian-produced oils, of course, which would mean canola oil, basically, to lower the saturated fat content and keep the butter nice and soft.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I don't want butter from cows fed canola oil, personally.
That's even, look, palm oil, at the end of the day, I don't think the problem is with the fatty acids. I think it is with salicylates. And it may be getting into the milk as well, because it's the problem is where I haven't seen any of the research. So the stuff that Papanato sent to me, I need to read it, and then I need to go a bit down that sort of rabbit hole to see whether I can find any other stuff. And the problem is I don't have enough to basically rest my hat on anything at the moment. I'm a bit concerned about what's happening in the actual dairy industry worldwide. There's more of this, like seed oils, like even in Australia, somebody's told me that they were actually using in parts of New South Wales, and some of the big dairy manufacturers are actually using a number of seed oil byproducts in the feed. And so I know it's starting to, it's bad enough we do so many other, contraindicated sort of things to basically the cows in their feed. This is sort of next level. Oh, we've got another waste product. Now let's find a way to monetize that and feed it to the cows, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, the food supply is being further degraded in that regard. So these are problems that are happening. I think to a large extent, these are going under the radar for a lot of people. They're missing a lot of this sort of stuff. So I've sort of mentioned it a couple of times, but probably I haven't actually. I probably should do a video on it and actually do a bit more investigation into that sort of area of what's actually happening in the dairy industry in Australia. And I have no idea what's happening in other parts of the world. I know a bit about North America. that a lot of seed oils are being used currently in North America. I think the tropical oils are being used in Canada. It all has to do with trade relations. It's a bit like, like Japan buys seed oils for a lot of its processed stuff from the US because it's a trade thing. And then places like South Korea buy a lot from Southeast Asia in terms of palm oil because it's a trade thing as well. So it's these sort of things. So it depends on what sort of trade relations on certain commodities certain countries have that end up with certain types of inputs eventually that come through. But it is a worrying thing that more and more of the general food supply, because, the rest of us, we're going to get raw milk, we're going to get organic stuff and all that. Some of us can afford it more than others or whatever. But the general public out there are going to be getting this sort of shit milk that's actually been made even more, we're degrading the quality. We're putting, those fatty acids are going to be changed, altered, and a lot of other things. And these cows are going to be less healthy. So
the consumer's not going to make a distinction. They're not, by and large, they're just going to blame milk as a whole.
Basically. And what will happen in the future when they do future studies, they will be using this milk in their studies, and they will basically be demonizing milk even more. Not basically on the lactose intolerance issue, but on basically what they've actually done to, and I would not be surprised that in the future that they don't further, because these people are just motivated by profit. They don't care about human health or the damaging effects that it can actually have. I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard stories where a lot of oils are now being introduced in a lot of different, regular foods. So currently the oils that are being introduced are in yogurts. So you need to look at your yogurt to make sure even some of the so-called Greek yogurts are actually, some companies are introducing some seed oils, diluting them. There is also some regular sort of animal products like butter and stuff like that dilute. You've got to really check the labels, guys. You've got to be really meticulous because even regular brands are starting to shift and add other things because they're trying to get more profit. They're trying to cut cost. And it's really cost-cutting.
It's infuriating how difficult it is to get high-quality animal foods, given how simple they should be to produce. It doesn't mean easy,
exactly.
But how simple it should be. There's no need for any of this bastardization of food quality.
Like, one time, my parents went out to the supermarket, and unfortunately, they bought some plain yogurt for me, and, I wasn't there to check the label. And they were like, oh, there were none of the usual brands you like, so we bought this one. I tasted it, and it tasted awful. Then I looked at the labeling, and there was like rice flour, soy flour, vegetable oils, and stuff like that. I was like, why the hell would someone make this and sell it?
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's more of this sort of rice flour, soy type byproducts as well. Literally everything. And a lot of people would be surprised because a number of people on my channel are sort of still keto-ish or keto or get keto products or snacks or stuff like that. Check your snacks. I can tell you a lot of the snacks are getting a lot of these fillers. So even the so-called
Wacky Toaster, yes, go and get an ECG done, please. Go and get a look at. Carry on.
Yep. Yeah, so I'll move on then. Let's cover that. Yeah, and so I would basically say to people, you gotta check anything that, even now, what we would call regular food. Like the outer part of the aisles, not the inner part, which is all the box stuff, but the outer part of the aisles. Even that now is being tainted. You've got to be really careful. I'm finding that more and more products, like all the cheeses in the supermarket, are actually changing to non-animal rennet. So they are vegetarian friendly.
Oh, remember when you used to get it from slugs?
Those were the days. Those were the days.
They used to get their rennet from slugs. Oh, yeah.
And this is a madness in the world. So it's happening everywhere, in every single category of food at the moment. I go and look at the supermarket stuff, and I'm actually buying less and less from supermarkets, and more for specialty stores, because more and more of the products that I used to buy have been altered.
Yep.
And it's quite disturbing that it's happening, and it's happening at a quite quick pace as well. It's not happening slowly, and it's get down. Shell, get down to 3. You should be at 3. Don't be at 6.
3 what?
Like milligrams of boron. Boron is one of those funny minerals. It's great for bone density. It's great for basically normalizing, hormones. It improves, for postmenopausal women, but also for testosterone as well. It's really good. The biggest problem that I find with it is that if you've got like a magnesium, or even if it's not a severe deficiency of magnesium or potassium, it can actually accentuate it, make it worse. You can really feel it can actually bring up. So you got to normalize and then come down to 3. 3 is close to. I mean, like two avocados will give you about just slightly above 3.5, I think, or something like that. So, and that's most people from most foods. If you eat crustaceans and all that, you probably get around that level. Organ meats and stuff like that, and combine certain foods in the week. But, and that's the 3 would be around where you would get normally from a lot of foods in that regard. The highest sources usually are crustaceans or seafood and stuff like that. But when it comes to boron, I don't want you staying at 6 milligrams too high. It just has this effect on magnesium, potassium status, and can accentuate, especially because you get these cyclical excretion that happen. And most people that I've actually found that have not listened to me and have stayed on 6 for too long have actually noticed things that usually are akin to sort of magnesium, potassium type deficiency issues. So, normalize, as I've said, go from 12, 9, week by week to not down to basically the 4 weeks as you're going, you're stepping down. So 12, 9, 6, 3. And stay at 3, especially when you're trying to maintain that sort of normalization of those sex hormones. So, but the thing is, you've got to remember, if you stay for too long on things like 6 or above, and for whatever reason, usually I find that people fast, they don't cover their magnesium or potassium issues, and then they get massive leg cramps and stuff like that, because the problem with boron, it actually accentuates the effects of deficiencies in either one of those minerals. That's the problem. So you've got to be really careful, especially around any fasting periods or long periods of non-eating or stuff like that. I find the issues. So that's an esoteric thing that I came across. It was Christina that basically from the Netherlands, that she basically stuck on the 6 for too long, and she had that effect and had to give it up for a while to basically bring down, because it took a while to basically adjust. It can take. So please don't stick to that level. I just want to reiterate that again, why I'm so I get cranky about 3 grams. I've got my reasons. I don't want you basically feeling crappy down the track.
We trust you.
I was getting like brittle fingernails, flaky fingernails, and the only thing I changed was removing the boron.
Yep.
And it went away.
Yep.
It took about 6 or 8 weeks or something for the nail to grow out for it to be strong again. But I'm not sure if that's the boron specifically, or it's because the Life Extension brand boron has B2 in it as well.
The B2 is not the problem. It's the boron. If you basically, sometimes people can, it can actually have more of a bioaccumulation. It's another reason why I usually say to people, some people get that also when they consume a lot of avocados, because it's, avocados are also fairly high in boron. And there are certain types of things like prunes and what else? I'm trying to think. There's a couple of other things that are quite high. And if you're actually on a regular amount, it has this effect on the mineral balance, homeostasis. So you want to use it for a certain period of time. And I usually say to people, come down, use it for about up to 3 months. And then after they get off it. It's a bit like the B50 complex, where with vitamin D and B complex, I mean, you can take any vitamin D, but, because bacteria will take both D2 and, they're quite primitive in that regard. They'll accept either. But the thing is, they do need both the exchange of B vitamins amongst themselves, the beneficial ones, especially the bifido types, and also, a good vitamin D status for that. And so sometimes if you're in winter and you're doing this protocol, you're definitely not going to get out in the sun, or you don't have enough sun. You need a supplement with this high dose of B50 for 3 months. And after 3 months, you've got to stop. The biggest problem is pantothenic acid will actually increase too much and actually give you insomnia. So it's these sort of things. You just need to get it in from the food and the bacteria and not be supplementing at all. It's just a corrective thing, especially when people have got damaged gut microbiomes and they want to restore their gut microbiome, And the D also, those tight junctions, close them up, Everybody that actually bitches and moans about histamines, and I mean, histamines are playing an important role within DNA, they're important. But when they bitch about all this sort of stuff, I'm going, well, you got leaky gut. You haven't resolved. Just because you haven't resolved your leaky gut, don't blame the carnivore diet or blame, it's all these histamines. I eat shitloads of histamine foods, but I'm out in the sun continuously. I love the sun. But I'm eating shitloads of cured meats and cured this. I mean, my mates know me. I'm just like a Mr. Cured Meat and stuff like that. But I don't have a problem. No histamine issues whatsoever. I love cheeses, I mean, I can go guzzle down shitloads of cheeses and stuff like that, a lot of cured stuff. And it's basically, the other thing that actually helps as well breaking down is taurine. Taurine degrades histamine.
Sorry, Bart's motioning off camera. I'm assuming he's gesturing to Pim.
Okay. Hi, Pim.
Hello, boys and girls.
Hello, boys and girls.
Hello.
Yeah, I think
she's now poking her tongue out and fucking. She's poking her tongue out and fucked off. She's going, no, I'm not having it.
She did give us a hello, so I won't begrudge that.
She said, I'm not getting involved with those boys.
I'm not talking to those boys there, rude and prude, and she's got that teddy bear.
It's not us. It's Ted. Pim, it's Ted. It's all Ted's
Right,
fault.
He's
He's degenerated the stream.
He did. Ted's been playing up on the stream here. That's why she's not there, she says.
Yeah, I think I mentioned 2 weeks ago there, when last time I was on, that I have I've been experiencing what I believe are some histamine sensitivity issues, but I don't think fundamentally the solution is to permanently remove all histamine from my life. That just doesn't seem realistic. So I think fundamentally I would say that your assertion that it's the gut seems a lot more plausible to me.
Let me put it this way: if you did, you'd be a very sick person and very unhealthy and probably dead as well. Right. So no, it's not a good thing. Let's put it that way. I just haven't done the video, but it's not a good thing. And this is why,
for the purposes of addressing acute symptoms, if reducing histamine intake helps, then it does.
Yes, but you're not actually. See, the problem is that everybody out there is saying, "Oh, lower the histamine levels," or eat fresh meat and avoid all these sort of high histamine foods. But that's the wrong thing. Rather than actually saying, "Okay, you've got a gut permeability issue." And you've actually got also a gut microbiome issue. What are you doing to address that? But they're not. And the problem is, look, a carnivore diet over a very long period of time will correct a lot of that because it's very high in a lot of the B vitamins. And if you get out in the sun and you combine the two, it will correct. But my sort of biohack is for quick resolution. I don't want people suffering for months and months and months until they correct themselves, or basically remove a whole lot of nice, tasty foods. I mean, our ancestors wouldn't have a pH of 1.5 if they basically had problems with histamines and they couldn't cope with them.
What happens to people with leaky guts, Harry? Do you think we should ask Yellow Ted what he thinks happens to people with leaky guts?
Oh, we should definitely.
Liquid ass!
So true, Ted.
Yes. Goodness, thank you, Ted, for sharing.
Yes. So I would say to people that you need to resolve that problem, and that problem can only get resolved is by suppressing the pathogenic bacteria, which is that Reuteri strand that actually helps with C. diff and all sorts of other pathogenics, and dealing with the gut microbiome with B vitamins and vitamin D. Get out in the sun is the best way. If you can't, if you're in winter, then use a supplement, but make sure it doesn't have any nasty seed oils in it and all that. It's either MCT or extra virgin organic cold pressed olive oil. Check with a company if you're not sure. But the safest one is to go for the MCT option in the oil, or go with no oil and just add it to your meal, which is even better. So that's the best option. In terms of, and that will resolve it. You sort of have to go a bit higher in terms of the intake. Balance that with minoquinone 4 for the calcium side of things, or if you're going to do it, just cut out all the calcium completely for a while, because you're going to be getting shitloads in from meat and other things. You'll take it in because of the high D levels, and then you'll basically pretty much start tightening up all those tight junctions in all the mucosal, from your nose to your anus. All those mucosal barriers will basically be tightened up. Nothing like a tight ass, and
Dirty Harry, he really
nothing will get in or out.
That's it. Exactly. All right, boys, I'm going to have to race because I've got a few things to sort out this afternoon, including I am on the absolute precipice, boys and girls, of leveling up in the Cerule business. So I need to go and make sure that happens. Thank you very much. So if you want to help with that, absolutely get across to my Cerule link straight away and order a fuckload of products. That will help. Or even a small amount of products, actually, if there are enough of you that do it. We are right on the edge of leveling up. It's exciting stuff. So I'm going to race off and take care of that. Thank you, Harry, once again for the invite.
You're welcome.
I've enjoyed being here and listening to your dulcet tones and your, quite frankly, stunning ability to not only garner information from various sources, but to retain it and be able to produce it for people at will. It's a great thing. You're a great person, and I think everybody should subscribe to Harry, and we should get him to 1,000 subs as quickly as possible so that he can be demonetized immediately. That's basically how it goes. But in the meantime, go and race off and take care of that. Yellow Ted,
thanks, mate.
Yellow Ted is thankful also for the opportunity to say rude things. Basically, that's all he's got. That's just, he's a one-trick pony, pretty much, is Tourette's Ted. There's not much else going on in that regard. So with that in mind, we'll leave you with Ted, and he can ask his usual sort of question, which of course is,
What, are you retarded?
Good. Okay. Thank you, Ted. It's been a pleasure. See you, boys.
See you, mate.
See you, Bart.
We'll catch up when the sanity returns.
That's it.
Take care.
See you, Bart.
Yeah.
Stay well.
All right.
Oh, I'm in the middle now.
Oh yeah, mate. You're in the middle. You're the middle kid.
The center of attention.
So it's a correlation study. Yeah. Because the problem is with these sort of studies is we don't know what other confounding variables could be at play in that regard. I've never heard of this sort of stuff. It could be genetics and all that, but they've just, put the link on and I'll look at it. I don't mind looking at stuff in that regard, but it could be also due to certain genetics. Sometimes I like to look at these and then actually, if they've done genetics, find out exactly what the genetics are. If they're not like quick metabolizers, it could be an issue for the non-quick metabolizers. always interesting. Just another little bit of information you can find out, and it can be helpful for people so they can do their genomics, find out that if they're a slow metabolizer, give up coffee. Simple as that. Another reason, potentially. Yes. Thanks. Appreciate it. G'day, Zakia. Good to see you here.
I'm just going to stop trying to see around my cat and just let her be in the
way. What is the true on Everdeen when it comes to eggs? I usually chunk around 5 eggs raw. If it's only egg whites, it can be an issue. But if it's basically with the yolks, I haven't seen any real study that actually shows that proves definitively that it can cause a biotin deficiency.
I anecdotally, a family friend of mine had a close relative who swore by eating raw eggs specifically for his hair, specifically that he was preventing going bald by eating
biotin helps.
Raw eggs. So if it was purely the egg white in any context causing a biotin deficiency, he certainly didn't experience it.
Yeah, I've only seen people basically come with,
Luke,
with the biotin issues is when they've actually just done egg whites. So, and even then, it's not like a substantial amount, like a massive amount, in terms of reduction. We know that there is a mechanism there for, that it does affect, but how much is never been properly measured, Right. And these were very short-term, like studies on a lot of sick people, which is another problem. So we don't know whether there's other mechanisms at play either. So
even if it was absorbing 100% of the biotin in its presence or something, that even then, which obviously is not happening, it would only be while it's in your small intestine.
Yep.
With those other nutrients. So unless you're eating a whole bunch of raw egg white with every single meal, every time you eat, I don't see how you would be eliminating all of your biotin intake with raw eggs.
No, I can't see that happening. And I've actually even seen people that basically have cooked eggs and actually only cooked egg whites and have shown lower biotin levels. And cooking is supposed to eliminate the problem. So I don't think I think maybe it has, but it's more of a, everything is, the evidence sort of nexus is sort of, it's been more like association, or nobody's really, how can I put it, like taken that substance independently on its own and given it to people and have a control group that doesn't, and actually see whether it induces on its own a biotin deficiency. I have not seen a study. If anybody knows of a study, please show me, because I haven't seen a study in that regard. It's an association. Could it be, something else, or some of the composition in general of the actual it's hard to say. What I'm trying to get is, it's like the chicken and egg. Is it the avidine, or is it the white parts that basically don't give you the biotin unless they're cooked, which is what I'm trying to say. And nobody's really done any experiment like that. I like esoteric studies. It's like the one that I did with the high protein, 70% or stuff like that. I like esoteric things, like that guy that did 25 eggs a day. I like those sort of out of the usual. It sort of, because they really just blow away all the sort of assumptions that we've got. We tend to follow very reductionism, this very reduction narrow type of approach when we're looking at different substances. But if you can find a one of any sort, it always comes back to, well, maybe you were too reductionist in the way you've viewed this sort of mechanism or this sort of effect. So it's another one of those things where we don't have sufficient science, but a whole egg is raw whole eggs, and I've consumed raw whole eggs. I don't think cause any issues in that regard. And I love like even poached eggs, which are basically undercooked and all that, and just allowing it to just put it on a steak and literally and then salt and pepper, and that's really nice as a sort of like a garnish on top of my steak. So I'm not going to give that sort of up, and I don't think there's enough evidence to basically change mine. And I mean, you look at sort of my hair, how big and thick the damn hair is, and I just had recently a haircut, as you guys can see, stylish and and that, and mine grows pretty fast and all that, and I do have genetics of baldness, and I do have relatives on my father's side that are bald, and I've shown you guys my genetics in the past about baldness. My first cousin is quite bald. And he goes, I've actually, I say to my relatives, why don't you basically, because, well, the carboholics, that's the problem. They just don't want to give up on the carbs. Simple as that, On my mother's side, my cousins, and one's a doctor and one's a pharmacist, and they both basically had lily white hair in their mid-30s. They tend to also be very prone to photo aging in terms of their hair color. And I've struggled with it as well. It's a thing. And the only thing why I hold it back is pretty much because of the carnivore diet. I can't put it down to anything else. Or staying out of the sun completely, which is what I used to do in the past. I was lily white and stayed out in the sun.
There are anecdotes of people with carnivore diet returning the color to their gray hair as well.
Yeah, but I've got the biggest problem is I've got the genetics of photo. So my hair goes darker in the winter and lighter in the summer, and it's just because of
that too.
And it's just because I've got those genetics. And on my mother's side, they're even more pronounced. So mum, 30, she pretty much had to put colouring through her hair. She pretty much went white, very grey, very early. And my cousins on mum's side, both of them went pretty much in their 30s, mid-30s, so, yeah. And it's just the way it is. There are certain genetics where it's just, things that you can't avoid. But I have noticed a slight difference being on a carnivore diet in that regard, which is good, in that regard. But I'm still trying to hack that properly and find out a way of, a solution to this genetic problem. Basically, I'm trying to find a way of actually turning off those genes, silencing them. That's basically what I'm trying to do. I just haven't found any research that can tell me how to do it. So, yeah, it's just, yeah. Well, look, there may not be any research. Some of this sort of stuff never gets researched because there's no money in it. At the end of the day, some company needs to basically provide the money to basically for somebody, and these sort of things are, yeah. Okay, so yeah. I thought it was 3.5, but is about 3. Yeah, okay, yeah.
That comment would have been well before you had just spoken about avocados and boron as well.
Yeah, exactly. That
obviously you're consistent, Harry.
That was a way. Oh, yeah. I've sort of now that there's more people in and now that Bart's gone away and I'm starting to answer questions rather than flow through them, it does slow me down to get through these sort of questions. It's just the way it is in that regard.
Just blame Yellow Ted.
Exactly. I always blame Yellow Ted. We sort of covered that earlier. It was this testosterone thing. But I'm actually going to do something on that and about differences. So I don't want to give too much away at this stage until I do that video. So I will cover a few things and a few biohacks in regards to it. So we will get there. I mean, people know about boron that helps with testosterone. They know a few other things that help as well. Vitamin D is another important thing. You know, how many people that I've come across on the carnivore diet that actually have, when I've said to them, your testosterone levels may be lower, maybe due to vitamin D deficiency. They go and check, voila. Yeah. You know, you're in an office, you're an office worker. You know, if you're a doctor, you're in an office all day. You know, you're not going to be out there. Yeah, okay, you get out there in the afternoon. It's not much UVB. You get out there in the morning. There's more UVA, which is good because that red light spectrum is really healthy and you know, it helps healing, but you're not going to get the vitamin D you need. And a lot of people, I found myself, you know, not getting out in the sun for sufficient hours I was actually, you know, struggling, and I couldn't believe it. I'm saying I'm lily white. Why am I deficient? And then I realized by doing longer walks at lunchtime and getting out morning tea and afternoon tea type hours now and then, and doing, you know, these longer walks on the weekend to try and lift my vitamin D levels. But it's always a struggle because you're indoors. You're an office worker. I actually found better vitamin D levels when I was actually working from home because I could do big, long lunch breaks. So at work, you can't because people frown on it. People look at you funny, you know, you can't be away for multiple hours. But when I was at home, I'd start early in the morning, get up, throw a t-shirt on, get on my computer, log on, connect to the network and do my work. And then after that, I'd go for 2.5, 3 hour walk right in the middle of the day. Even in winter, the sun is out and you'll still get some after that, especially when you're lighter skinned and you've got quite a few hours, you will get much better levels. And it does help in that regard. But it's really hard when you're working in an office. And I understand. And most people don't realize that. Until they check, they think, oh, I'm getting out enough and I'm getting enough vitamin D. You're not. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, we've got basically 6 months, well, more like 7 months of the year here where you can't get a meaningful amount of vitamin D from the sun just for the UVB exposure. But I don't think that vitamin D is the end of the story for the benefit of sun exposure.
Yes. Yes.
I think that, like, I notice a lot of, I notice I feel a lot better even in the middle of winter, like right now. Making sure to sit in the sun indoors as much as I can. If the sun's coming through a window, I try to do my best to, whatever I'm doing, be in the sun without a shirt on. And it's, you know, that the infrared is still there. It doesn't get cut by the glass to the same degree that UV does, for example. And I feel a lot better for it. So it's important not to just look at vitamin D from sun exposure. As exactly with the value of the early morning and late evening sun as well.
Yep. It also sets the circadian rhythms and also has a big effect. That red light shift has a big effect on, you know, health promoting. Really important. So in terms of also in the evening, melatonin secretion, really important. It actually going out at the time as the sun is receding over the horizon, that as that red shift starts happening, that sends a powerful signal to your body to upregulate melatonin. You can't get that from being indoors. Even if you basically got blue blocking glasses, you turn off the regular lights and all that, and you've got these better lights like I've got. You don't get the same because it's a whole spectrum of photonic energy that's creating this sort of signaling to your body. You're not going to get that from just having sort of, you're blocking out this spectrum and you just got this color. The body doesn't know what time you're in, really. Yes, it does have a benefit because it reduces that blue light to basically maintain that melatonin, increase it over time as you're getting later and later in the evening. but you need the signaling. It's so important. And I just walk outside in the evening, or early in the morning. It's just the thing that I've got used to now doing. I know it's bizarre.
I would do the same. It's just hard to motivate myself to do it when it's minus 20 degrees Celsius like it was this morning.
Yeah, that can be rough. We don't get those temperatures.
I don't want to go out shirtless in that temperature personally.
I mean, even in winter, it's probably the coldest we've probably got is like -1 in Hobart.
Oh,
if
yeah,
that.
sure, just rub it right in.
Ooh,
Yeah, exactly.
That's cold. Even -1 is too cold already for me.
Yeah. And that's the big difference. I mean, you're up to about 60. You're about up to 60 now nanograms per at the moment.
76, Harry. 76.
That's right. That's right, because the old one was 60, whatever. Yeah, it's even higher. Yes. So you're basically 76, which is with the metric one.
For your vitamin D
times
level?
2.5. So that's 190. Yes. 190 with the metric system, the nanomoles. So that's really good. That's at that high level, and you've noticed it, how better you feel health wise.
Exactly.
And I bet your digestive system is also feeling fantastic as well.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah. You would. I mean, anecdotally, you've told me before when we had the private conversation how better you feel in terms of your digestive system. Your thyroid issues and all that, and you've got more strength, you've got more energy, you feel more alive, those sort of things.
Yes.
So you've got all these, and it's because it's a powerful hormone, vitamin D. It is a powerful hormone for the body, and it's really important in closing down those basically tight junctions, stopping stuff. And it's not, a lot of us think, oh yeah, lectins, or think gluten, or think this. Also LPS, lipopolysaccharides, they around the pericellular matrix of bacteria, they shed continuously and they go into the bloodstream. They create problems. And they also even affect the thyroid as well. Now, by basically closing down those tight junctions and they're not going in, more animal fats and all that upregulate also DAO as well and help with that. But all these work synergistically. You're probably now consuming some cured meats and you're enjoying them. Without having any of those sort of histamine effects or whatever. I say to people, if you've got access to the sun, enjoy it. Bathe in it. Be a sun worshipper. If you don't have as much, which is basically me and Jared, we have limited time in the year. Probably me more than Jared. He's even less lucky. Poor bastard.
Yeah, it's coming around. It's getting warm again. I always look forward to March. March is when you really notice, you get in your car even on a cold day, and inside of the car is warm because that infrared intensity is starting to increase again. And I've been known to be outside without a shirt on, sunbathing at the end of March at 5 degrees Celsius or something. It's just enough that if there's no wind, the sun will keep you warm, right?
Exactly.
If you don't have the air motion, the motion of the air blowing off your body heat all the time, then it still feels warm.
Yeah, they're sort of the cold cheering force of hitting your body. Yeah, it makes a big difference. But I think vitamin D is. I would go as far as saying that vitamin D deficiency. I mean, yes, I have talked about things, too much lectins, too many emulsifiers, and all these things that have an effect on the gut permeability. All these are valid. But I think that if you're assaulting the gut with a lot of these things, because we over assault now because a lot of the processed foods have got shitloads of emulsifiers that break down the mucosal layer, that protection around that thin layer of the gut lining where these tight junctions exist or not. But the vitamin D plays that essential role in tightening all that up, and also keeping the pathogenic bacteria down that actually break down that gut mucosal layer as well. Because there's a lot of things that actually affect. There's a lot of vectors in our modern world, because we eat inappropriate foods, which we tend to grow certain bacteria. We take too many antibiotics, or not enough B vitamins and vitamin D to support the maintenance of the beneficial bacteria as well. Because the beneficial bacteria actually need B vitamins from the food which we eat, which is animal-based food, which has more high B vitamins, and also vitamin D. They do require vitamin D. They accept either vitamin D2 from plants or D3. They don't discriminate. They just love D of any sort. They will use it. So you need to feed them. Sometimes we think about only ourselves, feeding ourselves with vitamin D or getting it from the sun. Our gut microbiome also needs vitamin D. It's really essential.
Interesting.
Yeah. So if we don't provide that and the B vitamins, we will alter our gut microbiome to our disadvantage. So this is why I sometimes, I get, we have this reduction. Oh, it's histamine, it's this and that and whatever. And I go, no, it's really, I probably really should, but I have a tendency of going overboard and making these very long videos, which I don't want to make. So I want to make a whole lot of short ones and then make like a concise, like protocol one, which actually is like what I call a digestive reset. It's not this, it's just a generic digestive reset for everything, from your gallbladder, your stomach, all this sort of just doing that sort of reset, getting all these parameters over 3 to 6 months, and resetting people to a level where then they don't have these reactivities anymore. I just don't want people to suffer. You go back when people were out in the sun, they were eating more animal products, and they basically did not have all these issues. They didn't have these gut issues. They didn't have all these autoimmune issues. From the moment we went, we refined our foods and reduced the animal products, and we also limited our sun exposure. Our health went hell in a handbasket, went to shit, and really we have to go back to that period in the 60s or whatever to basically, we don't even have to go further back, that basically just incorporates more animal foods. And, people will vary how much animal foods they put in there, get rid of the refined stuff, get the B vitamins up, primarily from food, but initially from supplementation, and get the damn vitamin D levels up, And if you're in that early stage, unfortunately, you may have to supplement continuously because you've still got a lot of incorporated, seed oil lipids in your membranes, which means 4 to 7 years on a low dose vitamin E to eliminate that stuff, to clear out that stored PUFA in those tissues, because that's going to, cause the burning effect. It's what I used to do. 30 minutes and I was burning, Now you can stay out for hours and you don't get burned. Yeah, exactly.
Even faster than that. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. In short amount of periods, I used to burn really badly when I was on high seed oil consumption, and now I don't have that issue. Hours. My friends know me. For hours I can sit out in the sun. Even yesterday we're out, having a barbecue and sitting out in the sun. It's not.
2 years ago, I was almost a year onto a carnivore diet, and I accidentally got a really bad sunburn, and it I was beet red about 3 hours after getting out of the sun, kind of thing. I didn't realize it had happened at the time, but I put tallow on it just to soothe it topically immediately. And that immediately just took the sting right out of it. It didn't bother me at all anymore after that.
Yep.
And I expected to be in discomfort for 3-4 days, a week maybe, before it was really back to feeling fine. And the next day it was gone.
Yep. It's basically you just put in their retinol, and you basically put in their MK4. Largely, if we want to put it down to the two key elements that were at play, and also you probably had some animal products, which would have meant you would have had a bit of extra things like taurine compared to someone else, and that would have helped as well, with the fibrotic tissue and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different components, but they would be the key ones. Niacin is also a very important thing, and that tends to be higher in animal foods. Obviously, pork is higher, and tuna, but still, even tallow has a good level compared to the plant stuff out there and many other things that most people consume, and that also helps with skin as well. So there's a lot of elements in the actual animal food, and the longer you eat them, the more resilient you are. That's why our ancestors could go out there and hunt as midday persistent hunters. Why? Because they ate the foods that gave them the protection.
Exactly.
It's so simple, and it's the reason why I sort of arc back to these old times, of our ancestors, the way they ate and all that sort of stuff. It's not accidental. It's because that's what happens. Their body gets better, resets. Now, obviously, you can accelerate that with a few biohacks that I always suggest. And that's what I do, rather than actually having people wait for months or years to basically slowly get those levels up. I usually say, well, just push the levels up, and balance them out appropriately. A bit more MK if you're doing vitamin D, much higher levels, especially if you're supplementing because you're in winter. Then up your MK, your retinol, and your MK4 as well, and that will basically balance all that sort of stuff out, so you're not creating any issues for yourself. But it's not difficult. It's not rocket science for anyone. I mean, yes, we look into the esoteric stuff, me and Bart and other people, and we like to look at studies and look at some of this stuff. But for the general person, the general carnivore out there, it's really, getting a mixed food profile, so you can actually get a lot of different micronutrients, because a lot of us come to the carnivore diet with a lot of deficiencies of one sort or another. We don't know what, and even some of the tests that you can do won't really tell you very much as well, because there are issues with some of the tests. They're not as accurate. They have a whole lot of problems with them, and you have to really do these really expensive tests where they take biopsies and stuff like that to really see exactly what's in the cell, not what's in the bloodstream, but what's in the cell, so it's complicated stuff. So it's much easier just to biohack and do certain things and normalize things over time. But for lungs in particular, vitamin D is a big one. For the tight junctions, big one. Those are the areas where vitamin D, I notice most people have the biggest issues in that regard. And I think, possibly there's a lot strong association. Now, we can't do studies on little kids that have got asthma, but not all asthma is the same. I mean, my sister had structural asthma, which is basically her lung surfactant didn't have the right materials because she was on a plant-based diet for 25 years and she had asthma. But then when I put her on the appropriate foods, that fixed. But it was basically fixing the lung surfactant, which is primarily made of choline and also palmitate, which is a saturated fat. Now, I understand why she had this structural problem, because she's one of those people like myself, like my father, 10% of the population that has this inability to convert methionine to choline and then choline to folate. And so we need to eat organ meats and eggs to get those sources. And if we don't, which we didn't, then we suffer. So, and I've actually noticed that my father's improved himself much more now that he eats more liver and more. He used to eat eggs, but more eggs, double the amount that he used to consume. And my younger sister, recently she did Well, she promised me she'd give up smoking, but anyway, I don't know because she's in Western Australia now. She may be lying to me, but I'm not sure about that. Yes.
There's only so much you can do.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, even somebody who's a light smoker, who's trying to stop smoking, can still have a complete reversal of their asthma for 25 years on a species-appropriate diet, or a largely species-appropriate diet. That tells you something,
Yeah, I have a very close friend who's had lifelong asthma, and I've really tried to get it. He's aware of the benefit of a carnivore diet, but he's very reluctant to try it because he sees the inability to continue eating those other foods as he finds it very restrictive. I guess he thinks that it.
I'm being deprived.
It would like that. Yeah, he seems to think that he'll get trapped on it or something. I'm like, yeah, you're gonna get trapped feeling great. It's what a terrible thing to have.
Yes, that's good.
Shocking. Absolute
but,
shocking.
I'm hopeful he might come around and try it sometime. But
how could you do that too, Jared?
To see what kind of progress he might make with his asthma if he were to change his diet.
Yep. The other important thing is also vitamin D. Vitamin D is really important. Gut permeability is another issue with asthma, but vitamin D is a big one. So get him to check his vitamin D status and up his vitamin D. Even if he supplements, he has to supplement. It's going to be better than basically where he's at the moment.
Yeah.
Plays a big role. Vitamin D.
I think he's just sort of complacent about it. He's had it his whole life, and he doesn't. He's very used to the baseline discomfort, I guess.
Yes, Dylan, that video is coming. You guys you should blame your ancestors for consuming far too much cod liver oil, and basically as a consequence, you did not need the ability to convert carotenoids. So yes, unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize there are also carotenoids in animal foods as well, like tallow as well. You'll find carotenoids. The difference is that people like the Irish are very poor converters, compared to many of the other populace. Iceland, some of the Norwegian coastal people as well. So
there's an old rug rolled up against that shelf that we haven't had a chance to get rid of it yet, but I'm sort of reticent to get rid of it now because the cats love it. It's their favorite scratching post / climbing rig.
Nice. Well, as long as it keeps them happy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Lucy, she basically likes to tear furniture apart. Yes.
Mm-hmm. They will do that.
Yes. That's the thing.
You just need to get them a better place to scratch.
That's
so they can not use it and continue to scratch the furniture.
Yeah, that's coming, Dylan. It's on my list of things to do, of many things. Yes, it's the downside of basically having a day job.
Oh well.
This week I actually had planned to do 3 videos this week, and I just didn't do any. I just didn't have the time. I was so busy with other things. I just did not have the time. I mean, the thing is, other people have the time because they're full-time YouTubers and stuff like that. They've got the time to put material together. I mean, I'm in the other boat. Is I've got a lot of material put together, but I don't have the time to do the videos for it, which is the other side, because it's just where they tend. If you look at Thomas DeLauer or people like that, they've got a whole group of people behind them actually going and research for them.
Yeah. Thomas Lauer probably he doesn't even write his own scripts. His job is 20 minutes a day in front of a video camera to just be the model who denies using steroids and reads a script. And,
yeah, pretty much. And that's
I'm not making any accusations there, by the way.
Yeah. But that's how a lot of them operate. And that's their life,
which is fine, but it's
exactly.
like a company.
Precisely. I think it's for people like myself, like yourself, who's got a day job and all that, it's really hard to put content together. It's not that I don't want to, that I don't desire to actually do that, or I'm not wanting. And there's another thing as well. People have asked me, just a reminder, I may have to do a video just to make it quite clear. I don't do consultancies. guys. I just don't have the time to do consultancies. One thing, I don't need the money, but I just don't have the time, which is the key thing. So, occasionally on certain occasions, rare occasions for people who may be close to death or whatever, really extreme cases, I occasionally will, change that rule, but that's on a case-by-case basis. It depends on what you put in an email and tell me how, if it's a bad condition, I'll potentially may do a one or two, free consultancies and cover that. But normally I usually direct people with a lot of those things, addictions to PIM, general sort of stuff to Bart, and things like, neurological stuff, cancers, stuff like that, to Mary, because she's pretty good at that sort of stuff, because she deals with a lot of people with those intractable conditions. So she's quite well versed. She's away at the moment, unfortunately. She's gone to Africa to do some research. She's sort of a nutritionist research as well. She's a valuable person in our community, which is good. So she's recently got onto Bart's, and so when she comes back, she'll Bart will have her on. I'll have her on at some point. Talking about the latest stuff she's seen and stuff like that, and it's always good for for different people like Bart, myself, and other people like Sean Baker and whoever else to interview, because there's always going to be questions that I will ask, or Bart or this person, that are going to be very different than other people. It's just the way we are, We're always going to think of different things, and so it's always interesting to get a different perspective, because we all we want to find or know something different, or we will focus on things because we've got our own pet interests, which is just a normal human thing. So hopefully we will be able to extract a lot of little pieces of wisdom from her latest research when she gets back. So yeah, looking forward to that. Yes. Now, the biosynthesis of taurine endogenously actually drops off massively after 65, but it usually declines from probably mid-30s onwards, and it picks up pace. And that's basically what happens. And it's really important to break down fibrotic tissue. It is a sulfur amino acid, and it's a very important sulfur amino acid that also works with cytochrome P450, which is your main detoxifying enzyme in the body, in the liver. So yeah, very important for the liver. Very important also for emulsification of the bile, so it's really good to have proper bile function. You need taurine. So there's a lot of things, and this is why animal products are very important. It's the reason why we have this epidemic of, gallbladder issues. Use it or lose it, and then let alone we don't get enough of the nutrients that we need to basically have the liver functioning properly. But that's other videos that I want to make about liver health and all that, and look at the certain things that influence there. I've talked a lot about it, but taurine is really one of those important things. But there are different doses for different ailments and for different people, and there are blood pressure issues, and they all have to be addressed properly, which I can't address here as a question, but they will be in proper videos where people then be able to use that and action as protocols and action depending on their circumstances and stuff like that. So stay around, and you will basically get to see those videos in the not too distant future, in the next following couple of months. Hopefully I've got free time and I can do more in that regard. Follow up last week's Sky High B12 vitamin D levels. Comment, Doc, it claims it's due to the high cholesterol level, getting me an inflammation, advanced cardio panel, statins here. Look, vitamin B12 can be a number of things. There could be issues with your liver, unless you've checked. I don't know. In that regard,
there's a homocysteine element to it.
That's it exactly as well.
Your blood work as well.
Yep. There is that sort of stuff with in terms of the folate side, but also you could be one of those people that have because you're consuming a lot, but you're not actually regulating the enzyme, so not enough riboflavin maybe. If you've got that MTHFR issue, so you're not basically you need more riboflavin. So you may be eating foods that you're not getting enough riboflavin in. I don't know what you're eating, so you'd have to send me an email with a food list, just what you eat to get an idea.
If you're looking at your B vitamin levels, you should ask your doctor to do urinary organic acids test.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
That would be Elliot Overton considers that the gold standard, and he does a lot of work with B vitamins with people's B vitamin levels.
Yeah, that would be actually a good one because that would actually tell you exactly where they were at. So it's if you haven't done that test, consider it. And then email me, so at least I know where you're at in that regard.
As a rule of thumb, this is of course not medical advice, but I find doctors are often
definitely not.
These doctors are often. This is an observation of my interaction with doctors, that they are often much better at identifying problems than solutions. So I would put more stock in their appraisal of what the problem is than their appraisal of what I should do about it.
Yeah, it's the sort of way that they operate, which is unfortunate in that regard. Anyway, I've fallen really behind. I'm going to actually move ahead a bit and just touch on a couple of others just quickly. Hey Harry, you're thinking about making your candida? Yeah, I haven't actually got around doing it. I did show on one of my videos a couple of things in terms of candida, but yes, it is coming in the next month. So expect something on candida next month. There will be something. It's up higher up in the list. So okay. Now let me just go through. Yes, it's always creamy.
This is a particularly nice batch of milk. It's very creamy.
What was this? A vegan prophet tried to make a point, and bowed mouth meat might have cell membrane fatty acids. So forgive me, but I still have to ask. I'm not sure what you actually mean by might have meant cell.
I think
the cell membrane fatty acid composition is a problem.
That's a preamble for a question.
Is it further down? Oops.
I'm not sure. I'm just assuming by ending on a colon. Yeah, there you go.
Carnivore diet influence cell wall proteins themselves and not their function, maybe GLUT4 or the like, negative or positive. Well, GLUT4 is basically the thing that actually brings vitamin C or glucose into your cells, pretty much. The cell wall is actually made up of not only proteins, but cholesterol, phospholipids. It's a mixture of things, and they are called bilayers, which one side is hydrophilic and the other one hydrophobic. It's just the way they're actually designed and set up. But I'm not exactly sure what you mean. An animal-based diet is replete with all the essential components the body needs. And if you want the body to basically transcript enough enzymes to build, because you need proteins to basically build the building blocks. So your body has proteins that actually transport things around. Even at your gut wall, you've actually got these metalloproteins that actually move minerals, ionized, that have got a positive ionic sort of form to bring them in. And it's the same thing, and there is a certain level that they can bring in at any time, and it sort of regulates that sort of homeostasis thing. It's one other thing that I talked last time. Remember when Bart was here about the heme iron thing as well, that issue with hemochromatosis. I touched into that, my own hypothesis, that everybody that's on a carnivore diet now doesn't seem to have the problem, because they're not getting all the non-heme iron coming in that can't be regulated. So these people don't have the genes to transcript and regulate it properly. So I think that's where the problem's coming from. But that's a hypothesis of mine, still to be proven, because we've only got N of ones in that regard. So I think there's a lot of nonsense about this sort of stuff. Our cell walls are not created by fibrous plant forms. So, and the bioavailability of protein from plants is extremely piss poor. That's gold plated. It's in the literature. That's not disputed by anyone, even the so-called crackpot scientists. Anyone on any side of the fence does not dispute that. It's, you go to the USDA sites, any scientific site, it's pretty much, because there's old mechanistic studies that show that quite clearly. The most bioavailable protein obviously is eggs. Its bioactive utilization is up to 49%. It is 49%, and for meat, it's about, including seafood and ruminants, about 32%. And for most plant sources, anywhere from a few percentage points up to the more refined stuff that's sort of concentrated tends to be like up to 17. And even then, it's, because it's not properly balanced, it's not perfect in many other respects as well. So, and even things like supplements are pretty low as well. A lot of the supplements are in that sort of anywhere between that 13 to 20 odd. Mm-hmm. So they're actually even less. So 100 grams from a supplement will give you less compared to meat.
Do you know what the percentages for the proteins in dairy, in raw milk, for example? Just offhand.
I don't actually. I know that it's actually that when they're looking at bioavailability, dairy and eggs are the same.
Yeah, I would suspect that dairy would be higher,
but
not than eggs than meat. I mean,
yeah, but utilization, I don't know exactly. I did see something years ago. No, I'm not going to say anything because I'm not 100% certain. I just think that certain parts of the milk, depending on whether it's milk, whether it's cheese, whether it's, it does alter slightly, has a sort of the utilization sort of changes slightly. But I just can't remember the damn study. It's just so long ago. I just, in my rampant milk day type of propaganda time when I was pushing milk like mad, taking people, even before I became a carnivore, it's when I left paleo and I got disgusted with paleo and went low carb, I really went into a hostile warfare against the paleo community on milk. If anybody's seen my really old comments, they will know what I mean. I was quite ruthless.
That's the way.
Against the paleo community. The way I treat the vegan community now, that's how I sort of treated the paleo community.
Oh God.
Yes, I was quite ruthless about it. I'm a bit more sympathetic, a bit nicer to them nowadays, but because they're part of a bigger family. But in those days, when I shifted, because a lot of people, when they were shifting to a low carb community from paleo people were quite hostile towards Atkins in particular, in some regards. And so, and especially when it came to dairy, they really ramped up all the nonsense. And I actually showed, hold on, you can drink all this amount of milk and you're only getting a couple of nanograms of estrogen. And it's not even estradiol, it's estrone, the weaker form. So I'm going, it's E1, guys. It's not, E2. And on top of that, I'm going to them, the amount is so bloody little compared to 53,000 nanograms that we produce every day as men, and women 630,000. So it's a drop it's nothing. It's irrelevant. But they were making a big fuss about the estrogen in milk, or they were making a big fuss about the hormones, and we don't even have the same receptors to take up that hormone from the bovine hormone. They're not the same. We don't have the receptors for it. It's non-issue. There's a lot of things. Even the IGF-1, there is a peptide that actually can transport a bit of it, but that's all. Even that is a weak argument about the IGF-1 issue as well. So there was quite a lot of them. I did discuss them a bit in one of my chats with Bart, but at the time I was, I was, let's say, I was probably young. I was a bit younger, a bit less immature, and a bit more fire. I've sort of mellowed. I put it down to the carnivore diet. I've become more mellow and pleasant, and I crack jokes. I'm not as a rampant ideologue as I probably was a bit. I'm a bit more balanced in my approach, I hope. And I'm probably less certain about certain things compared to what I was in the past, just the way I am, which is, I think it's a good thing. Look, it's nonsense what they talk about, as if a plant will incorporate better in your cell membranes. God almighty. How brain dead can you be to think that? But that's the vegetards for you. What can you say?
It seems that I was just looking at something. It seems that can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I'm just clicking through the comments.
Oh yeah.
But it seems.
Oh yes, it happens.
Sorry,
but it seems that cow's milk is on there's this protein score. It's the protein digestibility corrected amino acid score. It seems that cow's milk has the maximum score of 1. But I don't really know what are the full implications of this. I just remember that it's something that people use to rate edible proteins, but I don't know much else about it.
That's the thing, exactly. Yeah.
My suspicion that it would be quite high just stems from its role in nature, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's the first food that's meant to help an animal put on mass quickly.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't the body utilize the protein? Wouldn't uptake the bioavailable, uptake higher?
Mm-hmm.
Would not make any sense. And that's why an egg actually creates a chick. So it's got to be very bioavailable to basically be pulled by that growing organism, to build up tissue. And that's the reason why I think those two are very much because of the composition and the factors in them that have that growth effect. And probably, things that we probably don't even know about that actually affect that utilization, or the ability for the body to pull in. Maybe it's interacting with certain enzymatic pathways that we still haven't researched to understand why it happens. We know it happens, but we don't have the actual mechanism. But and it's actually the real reason that bodybuilders understood that. That's why all those smoothies of the milk and egg smoothies of the past.
And cream.
And cream, exactly. This is what the guys used before the steroids and before everything else. That's what they used because they knew that really built tissue.
Yeah.
So
I've always struggled to gain weight, and milk makes a huge difference for me. I really wonder what it would be like if I could just drink as much of it as I could. I could easily drink. I can easily drink a half a gallon or a gallon.
How many eggs do you have a day?
So it's funny you ask. Just the last week or so, I've actually tried cutting eggs because it's one thing I haven't established a baseline without in over. I think it was like 18 months ago the last time I cut eggs out. But before that, I'll eat probably about a half a dozen or more, 6 or 8 eggs a day usually.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yeah, that's more than me.
I'll often scramble 4 or 5 of them together and eat that once or twice a day.
Yeah, but you would have noticed, because those were the early days when you were shifting to a carnivore diet and doing more carnivory and all that. You would have noticed by consuming those eggs, you would have been putting on more tissue in that regard.
I don't know. I ate a lot of eggs, and there was a time when I was eating like a dozen eggs a day, and I still struggled to gain weight.
Okay. Well, look, they still have one egg still has 6.3 grams of protein. Still, like even a dozen eggs is still going to be quite low. And the biggest problem with eggs, it can be quite filling, and so you can actually under eat other things then.
Fatty. Yeah,
exactly.
And I would usually put quite a bit of butter in them as well. Because I find the butter just made me feel good. And I should mention too, for anybody watching, that I'm definitely an anomalous case when it comes to weight gain or weight loss with nutrients like that.
Well, as I said, there could be another reason. You could have the genetics, because remember there are the genetics for sprinters. Which is basically bodybuilders, sprinters, and stuff like that, or basically a marathon type, all that sort of. And like because I've checked, I know I've got the sprinters, and I know it's very easy for me to put muscle on.
Right.
Where I know other people that are just like that, and pretty much, they enjoy doing their CrossFit, their cross running sort of things, or cycling or long distances and stuff. They enjoy doing that, and they've tried to build muscle, and it's nearly impossible for them. It's one of those things. But at the same time, they are actually eating a mixed diet. They're not really eating a carnivorous diet. So I think for people like yourself, the only real way to do it is doing more weight-bearing exercises and consuming more of the high bioavailable type animal sources, which is milk, dairy, and basically eggs.
For me, a big part for me just seems to be that milk just helps me to maintain a higher baseline body fat, right? Because I've done 6 or 8 weeks straight of beef, salt, and water kind of thing, fatty beef, salt, and water, and I just got way too lean. I could not put on any meaningful amount of muscle or body fat that way, and the reason is because I don't have that body fat buffer. Anytime if I missed a meal at all, if I stopped training for 3 days or something, I'd slide back every time. So with the milk providing that extra buffer of body fat, it helps me to have those stores that it's a little bit more flexibility there.
Jared, have you looked into bovine colostrum?
Yeah. So the only access I have for colostrum would be like a desiccated capsule, like a dried of it. But I have had colostrum before. It had been frozen, unfortunately, but it still made me feel great. It was fantastic. It was like orange. And,
interesting.
I cut it about 50-50 with milk because it was just too strong tasting without it. But that was delicious. I drank through about a gallon of it over the course of like 3 or 4 days.
That's deuterium, not tritium. That's in the nuclear power. Tritium.
I still have to try some.
Your water is tritium depleted. Then.
Yeah, I would hope as well.
Oh, look, it's an easy mistake to make. Or if your mind's elsewhere, So just for correctness.
Or maybe there's something about a tritium risk that I'm not aware of.
No, I don't think you've got anything to worry about. Anyway, we are another 6 minutes away from finishing today because I have to meet up with someone. Okay. So we're getting close to the end for today. So I'm just going to quickly go now. This one, bovine prions easily transmitted to humans and have been eating bovine organs and got scared hearing the Yakov's type disease. Yep. Yeah, look, it is very rare.
It's extremely rare.
Yeah, I've never heard of a case in Australia. I've never heard of a case in Greece or a number of other parts of the world, and it's extremely rare. Not that it doesn't exist, but it's extremely rare, and most of these things, when they get detected, they get pulled out of the food supply very quickly.
My understanding is you have a greater chance of contracting Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease from improperly sanitized equipment at an ophthalmologist than you do from eating beef. So
that's true.
Another way, because the patient before you had it, it's directly transmitted.
I actually heard of an incident of that. It was in a media thing somebody sent me years ago. There were 3 cases transmitted that way in the province of New Brunswick 3 years ago. Anyway, but I would also contextualize it within how many people do you know who eat beef versus how many people have you ever known who got CJD, right? Like it's excessively rare, and even then the risk is not specific to the organs. Those prions are in all of the tissue of the animal.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's precisely it. So it's an extremely rare thing, and the other thing is we actually don't even know mechanistically how it actually gets into the body. So is it maybe we never had the problem because we didn't have gut permeability, and now that we've got gut permeability, like lectins and other things that can get through these, maybe these things are now coming in, because remember, your immune system, a large part of your immune system is in your gut.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got permeability, and most people now have got permeability because of their diet, is it the permeability that's allowing this in? Or is it basically, because if we go back historically, we didn't notice these things, and they have, when they've actually happened, they've happened in populations that have got basically let's say, either they're modern populations which have got a lot of gut permeability issues, or in populations in colder climates that in the past who had poor quality, because there were peasants and people in parts of Northern Europe and all that really at some points, due to warfare and a whole lot of things, had really extremely poor diets. They were living on just subsistent plants or whatever, and they would have definitely low vitamin D. They would have definitely had basically some level of permeability, and probably were susceptible historically, because we basically also notice it. It's anecdotal, but we don't very much notice it in parts of like tropics, or it's more we've noticed it in animals in northern climates. So I'm really coming back to that gut permeability issue, but it's still, as I said, unless we do definitive studies, we don't know transmission, but I still think that if most of the things are stopped at the gut level through these mucosal barriers, and that's where most of your immune system is, why would it would not surprise me if they realized that the reason this gets into the bloodstream, like the lectins, like the gluten, like all the other stuff that gets in and creates the autoimmunity and all these other problems, is probably due to the same reason. But can I prove it? No, because we haven't. Can you imagine trying to do studies on people with leaky gut and non-leaky gut and giving them CJD? Not going to happen. I haven't even seen a study done with rats doing that sort of stuff.
It's such a rare disease. It's difficult to study anyway because you have so few cases of it.
Precisely.
But I'm very skeptical of the causal nature of prions and CJD. It's just that, I mean, they're misfolded proteins that can only be destroyed by an autoclave, supposedly, right? And like to the point that they will be in the soil and transmitted to other animals if an animal in the wild dies with that disease. So how is it possible that the entire Earth hasn't just been overtaken by prions? Right?
Exactly.
Like it's just there has to be something more to it.
Yeah, I think there has to be. I mean, I don't know what it is. Me neither.
I suspect a nutritional component.
Yeah, I think it's either a nutritional component or it's basically gut permeability or both.
Right,
you know?
Which comes back to a nutritional component.
Exactly, but I don't know what it is. You know, none of us do. As Jared said, it's so limited, so rare, and so little information and studies. I know it's emotive and really scary. That's true.
Yes, that's the thing. It's very scary. It's very captivating as an issue. It's a compelling problem.
And I know the vegans like to play on those sort of things. They love to, they ignore their own, but they like to play on that. But anything, even a plant, I suspect if it got contaminated with prions, would basically be a carrier as well. Anything. Mm-hmm. We haven't done the research and we don't know. So we've got to be very careful what we actually point the finger at. I mean, we know the vegans like to point that. They'll point anything, even if it's basically complete and utter bonkers. They will basically point to it because that's their narrative. They want to push that propaganda. It's like with the current coronavirus, the same sort of thing. Their solution would be to wipe out all the bats and get rid of the problem, because that's the only way you'd get rid of. Because humans will always come in contact with wildlife. So
hubris.
It's crazy sort of thinking. But that's the problem we have to deal with. So, yes. Anyway, I'm just going to quickly see whether we can see something. We've talked about all that sort of stuff, the palm oil stuff and all that. Okay. So we've covered that. Lately, gelatin is being replaced with vegan alternatives. Yep, that's true as well. Yeah, that's happening. It's much harder and harder to find bovine gelatin in a lot of things. It's being removed left, right, and center. Yeah, look, exactly. The animal rennet is a lot of cheeses, like in supermarkets now. In some supermarkets, it's up to 90%. So it's really bad. And look, at certain varieties that I used to enjoy, I have to go to specialty shops now and pay 30-40% more to get those varieties of cheeses, because I can't get them anymore with the animal rennet. And it's usually a lot of like Italian varieties, or it's a lot of the European, where still they do it in the traditional way for now. Considering the lunatics in Brussels, I'm scared about the future with them. All these lunatics basically are on a plant-based, crusade, and there are a lot of profits to be made, and they are pushing like mad, but yes. And okay, I was only on 6 for less than a week. Okay, that's good. Perfect. Don't go.
She knows what she's doing. I wasn't.
Good. Look, I'm always concerned.
I just mean in terms of following your advice, so I'm sure that you advise her properly.
Yeah, I'm always concerned. Look, we're all human. Sometimes we forget things or whatever. I sometimes, forget to remind people or things like that, and I don't want people to get into to get into any difficulty or any harm or stuff like that, which is the key thing. The old thing, just do no harm is my sort of motto. And that's why, if I don't know about something, I don't know. There's a lot of things, esoteric things out there or whatever, which we don't know about, or there's not enough research. And
that old Hippocratic oath that I wish more doctors would take more seriously.
Yes, it would be good if they did, but unfortunately they don't. And that's
because harm to them apparently means legal liability.
Yeah, pretty much. It's some of the biggest problems that we face today is that, we've got an environment where it's so litigious. I actually saw it. Yes. I'll just go into it. I saw a recent commercial, and it was about children, and they were told basically that how to basically record everything they hear. I mean, I know where they're coming from about people that abuse kids or stuff like that. I understand. But they're actually sitting there and actually, do you think that somebody who is a perpetrator that knows how to groom a child properly and isolate them and all that is going to be the person that's going to get caught out? No, because they know how to manipulate. They're very good at that because there's been studies that we've seen shows, and they can really put we had incidents where people have been sort of, raped or whatever, and they feel sort of the guilt thing was put on them. They never actually went out or came forward. That's not the people that are going to get affected by this law. The people that are going to get affected is the mums and dads at home that may be perceived by the child to basically be a bit heavy-handed or whatever, and they're going to write a little report about their parents and tell them how bad they are to their teacher to get correct, services in. So, that potential child could leave a loving family and end up in foster, potentially.
Yep.
This is the
Parents,
freaking madness of the world.
Homeschool your children. If you possibly can, get your kids out of the public education system because it's going to get worse.
Precisely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the other side of the coin is basically you're looking at Britain, and you've got a situation in Britain, for instance, where you're promoting this attitude. They actually wanted to pass legislation. The current Conservative Party there. How crazy is that? You can't make sense of either party. That's how bad they've become, both of them, in terms of authoritarianism. And they were basically saying, a legislation to get children to spy on their parents, write reports and report about their parents. They were encouraging that to bring legislation in. How messed up is that? That is just basically the stuff that George Orwell sort of, told us about, in his 1984, warned us about these dangers. It's what the Stasi did, and a whole lot of other groups around the world have done. What next? Child soldiers basically trained up to hate and kill their parents like they've done in some parts of the world. I mean, where does it end? These people are just basically, and to some extent, even though they're not creating child soldiers, what are they doing? They're taking young people and saying, your parents are evil. They destroyed the planet. They are evil. You should hate them. They are the problem, these baby boomers or whatever. And so they're even creating this sort of animosity and hatred between intergenerational stuff. It's a bizarre world we live in, a really bizarre world that we live in. And yeah, it's becoming
family structures are under coordinated attack, and they have been for decades.
They are.
First they got the elders out of the home, and then they started attacking the fathers to split up the parents. And
Precisely.
Now it's to radicalize the children against the parents.
Exactly. Yeah. It's basically this constant attack on the family. Let's destroy the family unit.
Yeah.
It's
because at
been
the fundamental level, what gives you the resilience to resist authoritarianism? What gives you the resilience to resist tyranny? It's your family.
Precisely. And that is exactly what they've been doing. It's slow and insidious, trying to divide us and separate us and isolate us from each other. And it's just, the plan is working because a lot of people are falling into line with it, which is horrifying. I mean, I talk to people that are middle class and all that, and compared to my conversations 5 years ago or 2 years ago even, they are far more woke. They are far more, accepting of this new reality, and it is damn frightening. We are the odd people out, I can tell you.
And the people who haven't followed them on this woke path, we're falling victim to conspiratorial thinking.
That's true as well. Look, there is within people that are against this sort of tyranny and all that, there is a lot of pseudo intellectualism and some crackpottery that does exist in it, and it's unfortunate. I call it out. When I see it, I call it out because it needs to be called out, because it reduces our appeal. It muddies the water for us, for people. And so I call, a lot of that sort of stuff out, because there's a lot of people going around saying, as I've said with mRNA vaccines and certain vaccines, they've got problematics. One, because they haven't been researched enough. Two, because basically they come from a class of interventions or used in like areas like cancer and other areas, and they did create autoimmunity and a whole lot of other side effects, which are not the best type you want to use. You want to use something which is closest to the virus, so it has less of the problem. So you just get the immune response. The body sort of responds, builds up, its antibodies sort of, and its template of how to deal with these things when it comes across them in the future. That's what you want. And you also want enough vitamin D. That's another component to basically regulate and help the immune system better, respond and regulate to this thing that you're putting in them. So that's where the angle should be. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there talking a lot of nonsense about, sort of micro dots and all these sort of bloody things, and, they can control you. No, they can't. That is just absolute nonsense. I come from an IT background before I got into mapping, and I can tell you I've been in the IT industry for years. And I know about Moore's Law, and I know very much about lithographic approaches, how chips are made and everything like that. And I can tell you our technology is nowhere near anything like that to make things as miniature as viruses or as miniature as even bacteria, let alone viruses, or smaller, to be able to do those things. It's fanciful, anybody that believes that. The problem is that these assholes don't give a shit. They just want the issue to go to be controlled in a certain way. They don't care about, it's all about profits and money for them. A lot of these companies like Pfizer and all that, they are profiteering. They developed a technology that didn't work in cancer, and now they're using it in these other areas. And it's the one that governments are pushing, some of these sort of things. Why aren't they pushing some of the others which are less problematic, like the Noravax and stuff like that, which is done in the traditional way, where you take the whole virus, all the different spike proteins, you basically deactivate them, you culture them so you can actually build a certain amount, and then you put them in and you inject them, which is no different.
You let your immune system learn.
Exactly. It's exactly like getting the virus. It's exactly like getting the virus, but without something that actually grows rapidly in your system, which is what the virus does, and potentially could cause a cytokine storm. But it's something that basically will just, you'll get an immune response, and that'll be it, and you will have an updated template for that thing. That's fine, because it's no different than actually getting the damn thing. Why aren't they promoting that sort of technology, which is the traditional technology which they've used for flu vaccines and all sorts of other things? Now, a lot of this sort of thing's probably unnecessary, because if you've got a good vitamin D status, whether you get it or not, it will be completely and utterly irrelevant, because it's not the virus that kills you, it's the cytokine storm because of the lack of vitamin D, the vitamin D deficiency that this population is. The only reason why I want people to take this vaccine, like the Noravax and stuff like that, which are non-problematic, is because basically, if you've got elders, or if you've got other members of your family that are basically on a sad diet and are vitamin D deficient and all that, I don't want my family members to die. So basically I would say take this because it's not going to give you autoimmune issues or any potential other side effects. It's the safest one to take. So at least, they can survive because some of them just, you can tell people, somebody can be really quite overweight. Like I know relatives that are like that, and you can tell them. And the next moment, they've seen me, how I've changed and all that, but still they go back to their cookies and biscuits and Doritos and whatever, they
taste good.
Yeah,
you don't understand. I'm addicted to carbs, not like you. I just can't stop.
That's it. Yeah,
I'll never give up that.
Yeah, and it's I'm just trying to keep them alive long enough to basically maybe they'll change at some point. They'll realize, So, and it's just that's the only reason where a person like you, or me or Jared, which we've got a good vitamin D status, we don't need it. Simple as that, And the only reason I may take it is because if I have restricted ability to travel, or if I have, they're talking about all these sort of vaccine passports now. And if I need to travel or I need to basically, for job purposes or whatever, that may be the only reason. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to take the safest one in that regard.
I'm going to resist it for as long as possible to give as much time to develop it safely as possible.
And to make sure, exactly that they've actually had it, because they're actually testing it while it's actually being rolled out at the moment. So by the time the year finishes, they should have all the data of, all the, to tell us what works, what doesn't work, and what has the most side effects and what doesn't, so you can avoid those completely. But generally speaking, if you're in that type position, because everybody's going to be in a different spot. And I'm not going to sit there and say to people, don't and lose your job. Somebody's got a livelihood or needs to support their family or is in a position where they have to travel because that's part of their job. I don't want people to lose their livelihood or end up on the road, or you know what I mean. At the end of the day, I want to give people the best option possible. So yeah.
My concern is that the vaccine passport
Yeah.
policy doesn't stop with just this one vaccine. There's just this one virus. There will always be a new threat and a newly developed vaccine against.
And that's why there has to be people like us.
Updated on, so they're basically just forcing a system where you're constantly bombarded by unresearched vaccines.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's when we have to have people like us that are constantly giving people the better option. Because the reality is, we can't save everyone, but we can try to help as many. And I think the more we share this sort of stuff with people, the better we'll be in the long run to try and help people, get those better results. Harry on his own is not going to do anything. It's going to be Bart, it's going to be Jared, it's going to be Lukey, it's going to be every single person that's, follows me or other people that are going to get out there and try and help their families, try and actually show them, look at these people, they basically have been getting this sort of ailments or whatever, and they're fine. They're robust. Look at how they've transformed their life. And you have to, as I've said, every one of us has to be examples to our families, because they look at us and they go, you're doing that. Look how better you are. Look how better you are, Lukey. And you're going to yourself, I'm really much better in terms of autoimmunity and a number of other things, and in terms of my reactivity and all that, because you've actually, it just took you a bit longer because you had to, one, get rid of some of those substances, but two, also, because you had to get more of the animal products in. You weren't getting enough of the vitamin of, the fat-soluble vitamins. You weren't getting enough of the cholesterol in to basically boost up those vitamin D levels. So you're out in the sun, but remember you're in the 60-odd in way back then, and sort of going more carnivorous, which is what I encourage you to do. You got more of those, and then that extra cholesterol, fat-soluble vitamins really got you to that really high level. I didn't think you'd get that high, but I was surprised. And it just shows the superiority of when you up the animal foods and combine it with sun, you really can get fantastic results. Obviously, you're in the tropics, which you're luckier than the rest of us.
Well, I always tell people, come join the tropics master race.
That's it. Yes. I do have a plan of retiring the tropics when eventually in 5.5, 6 odd years around there, when I do retire, I'm 60, and I'll be flying out to the tropics and retiring in some nice sunny place, because Tasmania is quite fucking cold, like Canada. Not as cold as Canada, but yeah, it's still cold. You know what I mean? Like it's summer now, 20, 22. Yeah. We rarely get a day of 30. It's like, it's 30? What happened? Did the world turn upside down? So
Jesus, that's not enough heat for me.
Yeah, look. It really makes a big difference. Most of my family and friends are very open to keto carnivore now because of me. Good to hear. Most of them still eat carbs, but they know what happens when they are cut. Yes, when you cut out and don't argue it anymore, which is good because they've tried it a bit, and that's good, Jules. It's really good that people
get someone to try it a little bit. That experience is undeniable.
Oh, look, it's my father, he'd eat more like dairy. He consumed more dairy and eggs with his vegetables and stuff like that because he's got a veggie garden, still does. But he wasn't a big meat eater, sort of in his later years, in his mid years, he was a big meat eater. And when he was younger, he was a big meat eater. But in his later years, he sort of cut down on his meat, and he started becoming sarcopenic, and at the same time, you don't notice this sort of stuff. And I looked at it and said, Dad, your muscles are really small. This is back 10 years ago. It's when I had my heart issue back 10 years ago. Same time, I stayed with him for about 6 months, and he helped a lot. He was a good support as well. Encouraged me to get my, not feel sorry for myself and a lot of other things, which was good. And put me on a high-fat Mediterranean diet. And I actually did notice that he was very, I used to go out and get a bit more meat and stuff like that when I was staying with him because, initially because I was still healing, he was doing a bit more of the shopping. But at the same time, I sort of noticed, and I said, Dad, you got to eat more meat. You don't have enough muscle on it. And then we started getting him to that, and I went and got him the little weights that he basically does now, and he restored. Now it was after about a decade. It took me a while because it was a struggle to get him on the meat. Nowadays, now he eats shitloads of meat, and he's put a lot of muscle, far more muscle than he put in the first 9 years. Or 8 years to be more particular. He slowly put muscle mass back. In the last 1 or 2 years, it's really gone much higher, and he's much stronger. Nice. You can grab him by the hands, and you can actually see he's got force. He's got strength in his hands where he didn't have that. And at 86, I mean, even his doctor is surprised, or he goes, bloody hell, George, you're 86, you're stronger than somebody that's much younger, and all that. And he's shocked at the strength that is. And his doctor's sort of come right around. He's a younger bloke. He did a bit like high protein to lose a lot of weight. Dad's doctor is a bit more, let's say, he's interested in looking at things, in researching things. He's less of the traditional allopathic type doctor. And I sent him some stuff, some studies, stuff and information, all that. And he does admire me quite a bit, which is nice to know. He always talks me to my father when Dad visits. Dad just does a regular, checkup and stuff like that. And but he's noticed Dad's really, much better nick and all that. And he's sort of suboptimal B12 issues sort of resolved, and it's sort of again getting the damn riboflavin up because he wasn't getting enough. Because people think vegetables, they got B vitamins. Shit, my father was consuming plenty of B vitamins, and I can tell you, They weren't being very bioavailable, you know. So the reality is when he started eating meat, he corrected this B12 deficiency, you know. So, you know, we had a problem. His B12 had declined and we didn't realize that. And then his doctor tested him and said, your B12 levels are low. And basically, after getting him onto liver and getting him onto more meat and more eggs, all gone, all resolved very quickly. So he's probably got, I haven't checked his genes, but he's probably got the same MTHFR as I've got, as my sister has, you know, because they had similar issues. And when they increased their riboflavin, it all sort of magically resolved a lot of these things. So it's
amazing.
As I said, MTHFR is a riboflavin deficiency because traditionally these people have eaten a high amount of liver and eggs and stuff like that, animal organ meats, nose to tail. Traditionally, Greeks eat a lot of that. They did back in the 70s and 80s when I remember when I was a youngster, still do to some extent. And that's where they were getting that additional. And so the body just down-regulates that enzymatic pathway. So you need more from the food to support that enzymatic pathway. That's all it is. It's not a folate deficiency. It's not a B12 deficiency. It's really getting the foods that provide those nutrients, but then supporting the enzyme to utilize that sort of stuff. And sometimes that's, you know, people can sometimes eat those foods and they be suboptimal in B2 in riboflavin and then not be able to utilize that extra and actually end up with higher B12 circulating as well, or folate or whatever. That's why I don't recommend people supplement, support the enzymatic pathways, because those enzymatic pathways will do the trick, will resolve all those damn issues. And I'm going to go. I just realized I've been talking to you far too fucking long. As I do always. Yes. What's new? Yes. Anyway.
Surprise, surprise! It turns out your fundamental nature has not changed in the last 3 hours.
I don't think it's actually going to change ever. I just
he has a small tendency to go beyond,
carried away and get into conversation and then forget about time. Yes, I do have that problem.
Oh, pesky thing, time.
Yes, right. Damn time management. Yes, it is a pesky thing. Yes, I find myself more productive when I'm not around people.
Yes, and that happens.
Yes, I think it's for all of us to some extent, but yes, it does help. Guys, I appreciate everybody being here today. Been a good program. Yes, I know Ted took up too much time today. That bigot, that Kiwi bigot, tried to dominate this live stream. He was put back into his cage, hopefully. I've been talking to Bart and telling him he needs to do far more to deal with that bigot, because he's allowed him to be completely uncontrollable. Now he's even giving him, the limelight. I mean, Bart's really, weak. He's really weak. He's become Ted's little bitch. He needs to pick up his fucking act. I actually told him that last time as a joke.
Somebody clip that.
Yes. Consider it, please.
So Bart can listen to it while he trains.
Oh, good.
Nice one. Grumbling to himself, Harold,
what are you saying? Oh well, you know what? He'll probably appear in my night stream tonight. Hey, get me on there.
Thanks as always, Harry.
Yes, I appreciate it.
I can give a final thought for myself, I guess, for everybody.
Yep.
I just want to, the world being as crazy as it is, try not to waste too much energy despairing at the circus, and focus on your immediate circle of where you can make a positive impact on the people you care about. Put your energy there. It's way more important.
I think so.
Precisely.
Yep. They are really good. The words of wisdom. Thanks, Jared. That's where we need to focus. And I've said every little small. Let's put it this way. There are 7 points of separation for every single person. if we can influence 7 other people, they'll influence 7 other people. It's like a sort of a geometric explosion that we can actually influence a lot of people. We don't realize our potential. We don't have to be pushy. No, that doesn't work. We just basically have to make people be interested in thinking about things, be a bit more inquisitive, be a bit more open-minded about things, and that's all we need to do. It's like with the vegans. I don't argue with them. If I come across a vegan, I usually say, okay, so where do you derive your ethical foundation? That just kills them off. Where do you derive your ethical foundation? Where's your objective foundation? Where does it come from? Because it definitely doesn't come from nature, I can tell you. Nature is quite violent, and Darwinian logic that applies there is, the most adaptable will take out the less adaptable, and they will encroach on their space and displace them, and that's what happens. So and most animals in nature, because there's a cycle of life and death, they rip each other apart. Where our animals just sit out there in the pasture, enjoying their leisurely life. They don't come all together in a pack because they don't have a predator to worry about. They live a carefree life. They are less stressed than humans. We have to worry about making money and everything else. They live a fucking carefree life. And then at the end, they basically provide us with high quality nutrition. Simple as that. And we knock them out. We don't kill them alive. We knock them out. We're humane, where other animals are not. They are not humane. That is why we are humane.
Definitionally, they're not humane.
Exactly.
It is literally impossible for them.
They are not They're not the same as us.
Exactly.
Because you take a look at even a chimp will tear limb from limb an animal alive. We don't do that. Yeah. So, we need to. This is another point of contentious point that we need to point out, which is really important. And then there are other issues like the nitrogen sort of cycle, and we know basically when we look at remember that study that I did about the carbon types, 12 and 13. Go and check anybody I did that chat ages ago. That I did that which I got via the Geoscience Australia website. But it basically showed that it was all shale and the ruminant stuff is declining. So it's never been an issue. And that was the 1970s. So since the 1970s, ruminants, that means globally, all the ruminants on the planet have basically been producing less methane compared to the 1970s, which was the coldest period when we thought we were heading for another ice age.
NASA did an analysis that they published in 2018. They determined that the greatest source of new methane going into the atmosphere is coming from, surprise, fossil fuel refineries, but also rice farming.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of the petrochemical inputs go into that type of agriculture to a large extent. So that's where it's coming all from. So it's not accidental in that regard. My phone's going off. I know who it is, so I better get going. Anyway, I'm out of here. See you guys. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you down the track.
Thanks,
whenever you're free to pop on. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And thanks, everyone that's actually followed today's stream. I do appreciate all my followers that sort of persisted for this long. There's still quite a few still around in the so thank you for contributing all your questions and and some of the other stuff that we weren't aware of to bring it to our attention. Then we can go away and actually look into it. Anyway, now the door. I'm out of here. See ya.
Bye.
I better put some pants on.